Something good gonna happen in this year.
Hi, I'm Adrian Agard. To my beloved Barbados, God has heard your cries. He sees the pain and the blood of our sons. On Friday, March 28th, I left for St. Vincent and the Grenadines with a group of 8 gifted musicians and singers. There in St. Vincent, the Lord gave me a message for this land. I returned on Monday, and now I must speak. Join me this Saturday from 6 p.m. at Independence Square at the national launch of Barbados Gospel Fest 2025. God is speaking, Barbados. It's time to listen.
Blessings gonna find me here. Oh yeah. Favor gonna find me here. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, Barbados, strict guardians of our heritage, firm craftsmen of our faith. Tonight, this is an amazing, amazing evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Marcia Week Show, and we are coming to you live and direct from Barbados. It's a wonderful evening. Oh, I hope you had a glorious day. Did you have a great day? Did you get some good rest today? Anybody got some good rest today? Oh my goodness. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day. And we are happy to be alive. We're here in beautiful Barbados. This is where we're broadcasting from. Well, let me take the time to just welcome those of you who have joined us. And just to let you know, we have an amazing show for you tonight. We have a new guest on this show is Dr. TULL, and he's going to talk to us about some of what's happening with our internet, with our social media. I'm hearing even from people who are in the diaspora that they believe that they are being censored by Facebook because people are reporting them, etc. And so he's gonna look even beyond Barbados and tell us a little bit of what he believes is happening. So he's gonna be on, and then guess what? Mr. Stephen Strickland is gonna be on, and he's gonna talk all about maternity leave, right? And remember, he deals with NIS, and so you really, even up to, you know what, a couple of days ago, people were calling me from last week's presentation. They were still calling me up to yesterday because they wanted information from Mr. Stephen Strickland. So he's going to be on as well. And the 18-year-old GLYNE Murray is on. And you know, it's education time. Education time. So the first part of the show, it's all information with some education in there. When Mr. GLYNE Murray comes on, you know, he's reaching back into the old, right, into the history, and he's bringing it forward. He's going to talk to us about by-elections as well. Rose Corbin did an amazing job, and he's coming to put the icing on the cake tonight. So you really need to stay put. And a little later in the program, I'm going to be talking about what the NCF is producing, some of that music that they're producing, the crime that is still happening in the streets in Barbados. I'm going to talk about that in the beginning in my little segment there. But let me take the time to welcome everybody who is on. Diana Husbands, Vernon Garnes, Flo Joe Maloney, Michael Jilks, Teroni Hall. Welcome, Mildred Ben. Welcome, Monica Ince. Welcome, Teroni Hall. We said Teroni Red, Owen Hines, Charmaine Taylor, Elizabeth Knight, Shirley. Hey, Shirley. Good evening. Wendy Ford Griffith, Charmaine Taylor, Kim Tay. Good evening, Lucinda Ali. Mystic Angels, Sandra Watkins, good evening, Joy and Faith, Houston Fields, Tim Ward, how are you? Dalton Spence, oh my goodness, Stephen Knight. It's so great to have everybody on tonight, and we need you to like, we need you to share, we need you to subscribe, all right? So when you like, what it's doing, it's telling the algorithm that, you know, people like this program. So it doesn't matter what they do. The program, you know, they will respond to the number of likes. It's a computer that's doing it. It's not a human. So you need to like. So can you just stop right now and like? Can we just stop? Over 300 of you have started the program with me. Just like. And then I want you to share. This is a time that you like and you share. So if you could do that, I would be like, oh, happy. All right. So please do that for us. And you will see the word subscribe. If you subscribe, so that whenever I come on, you're going to know when I post in the days. We've been posting a lot about Guyana, a lot about Trinidad, and we're getting ready to we have been posting about what's happening in Burkina Faso with Ibrahim Traore, and how everybody, you know, all those in the African diaspora, they are coming together and standing with them. I was told that even here in Barbados, that people were gathering today at 11. But at that time, I was leaving home. We had a meeting for 12. I couldn't attend. I don't know if anybody is listening who actually went to the gathering for Ibrahim Traore here in Barbados. If they could just give me a little report on exactly what happened at that gathering today. If you have a picture, I would really, really love to see it, or a video, would love to see it as well. Now, folks, I have a few minutes before my first guest arrives. And I want to, as somebody who is into culture, I have worked in Barbados in the cultural arena. I'm a cultural practitioner. I have done several theater productions, etc. I don't really need to go through my bio on here. I have received in Barbados itself, you know, working through the NCF. I'll just leave it at that tonight because I don't want it to be about me. But I'm saying that to say there is some, it qualifies me to say the things I'm going to say. It's a reason I'm telling you all about that, Barbados. Now, I was sent a music video that was done by King Bubba, and he's a white Barbadian who sings soca. And you know, and it was sent to me not by a Christian young man at all, just a young man. And he said to me, Marcia, look at this. Can you believe this? And I want Dave. Dave, you have it there. You could just put it up here for me, because I want us to look at this. And the people you're going to see, King Bubba, I want to say about King Bubba. King Bubba, he's one of the favorite artists by the NCF. That Dr. Monroe Knight, through Carol Roberts at the NCF, normally pays him to perform. And so he's put out his song that he will be performing at Cropover. Now, we're going to look at this song in the climate of what's happening. Let's think about it in the climate of what's going on in Barbados, where our Prime Minister, the Attorney General, they're like, what's going on? Oh, we need to, you know, parents, you need to take hold of your children at home, etc. Now, this is what I'm going to show you, some things that the state sponsors, because King Bubba is able to put this out. He's putting this out now for the start of Cropover, because he knows that he will be hired and paid big bucks by Carol Roberts at the NCF, through Dr. Chantel Monroe Knight and Mia Motley, who is a Minister of Culture. Don't let her get away. Dr. Monroe Knight is just a figurehead. She is a minister in the Ministry of Culture. And if that has changed, somebody can let me know. But the last time I checked, that was how it was set up. So we're not going to let the Prime Minister off the hook here, guys. Okay? So here you are. Watch a little bit of this. Oh, before you do, I know sometimes you have the children watching, because I've met children in town and they stay up a little bit and watch the Marcia Week show. There's no school tomorrow, so I know you might have children watching. I would suggest you send them to the next room, okay? Please take a moment and do that. But I must show you a little bit of it so that you get an understanding of what it is I'm speaking of. Okay, so I'm hoping, just send them to the next room. Tell them Auntie Marcia is asking them to go to the next room and they can come in a little later, okay? All right, go ahead, Dave, please.
Yes! She calling me crazy. You know you like that freaky shit. Come here. She calling me crazy. Don't stop. It's breezy. Don't stop. Don't stop.
Okay. Okay, so just pause right there. Now we are in a grave situation here in Barbados. Up to this evening, we were leaving town. I went to Nelson Street to visit the family and to take, you know, to visit the family. Let me leave it at that. And on our way out of town, we saw all of this police, and Dave said, oh, there's something happening. We were rushing home in time so we could come home, get something to eat and do the show. So we didn't stick around to see what was happening. By the time I got home, I'm seeing pictures of a young black man, look like he might be in his 20s or early 30s the most, lying on the ground in a pool of blood. That's the climate. There, we're in a state of moral decline. And this is what is put before us. And they are going to tell us it's art. They're going to say to a lot of people who are commenting on it that we don't know what we're talking about. It's art. I do art. I put out stuff. I understand the whole thing about you have to do what's happening in society, but my goodness. I mean, when you look at a video like that, I call it state-sponsored porn. It is porn. And the reason I say it's sponsored by the state is that King Bubba knows that the NCF, they love this. King Bubba knows that when he puts this out, he is going to get work from the NCF. Remember, the NCF is not an entertainment agency. The NCF exists to develop art. To develop. That's the main mission of the NCF. Developmental. The purpose of the NCF, the main purpose is developmental in its foundations. Who and what is that developing? No morals. And then we are going to figure out, we're trying to figure out what's happening with our young people. When the state is sanctioning, right? The state is sanctioning. I will tell you, you're going to see how many NCF crop over events King Bubba is going to be performing on. You will see. Now, it says here, I want to read something out. We showed you this. Dave, go back up for me. I don't have a lot of time. The other guest is going to come. But I want, tomorrow night, I have some artists that's going to come on. We're going to break this down. We have the president of Baco who's going to be on, and we're going to break it down. Okay? On Friday night. I'm sorry, I said tomorrow. On Friday night, we have a big show that we're going to do, and majority of it is going to be about arts, about culture. All right? Now, look at this. This says culture versus crime. And this was an article in, this is Barbados Today, I believe. And it says a groundbreaking initiative unites arts and crime prevention. Listen, listen. Now, we went through this and we saw that this was being, this company that was sponsoring the government to do what is called the Cultural Expansion Program. If you're making notes, write that down. Okay? The Cultural Expansion Program. Now, the Cultural Expansion Program is a program that is sponsored by the state. I will repeat. The Cultural Expansion Program is sponsored and sanctioned by the state. And why do I say that? The article that was on the screen before that you saw, the MP Honorable Corey Lane was part of, was by the smoke factory. Now, what's the smoke factory? Remember, we went through that, right? So this is a vape company where a lot of people in the US and Canada, they vape. Okay, if you don't know what vape is, it's a way you smoke. Okay, so this is all about smoking. So that, number one, that should have told us what was going to go down. Okay, and we had a whole program on here talking about the dangers of vaping. And here it is that the Honorable Corey Lane was saying that the smoke factory was going to be sponsoring knapsack and B-sack, because they're going to create songs and all of that in that period. Primary school. Okay? Now, this company gave the vape company you saw there, Smokes, okay? Smokes gave the NCF $1 million. And the NCF has used part of it to sponsor this particular, you see, it says cultural expansion program. I'm not making it up on Carol Roberts. I'm not making this up on Dr. Monroe Knight or on Honorable Mia Motley. This is a program of the government. Look at it. Let's look. Remove the children again, please. Can you remove the children, please? So just for a moment. Less than a minute. I was just playing probably about 15, 20 seconds of it or so. Okay? Thank you. Please remove the children. Go ahead, Dave.
Oh my gosh, this is lit. Lose a pick. I'm that. Mine's like thunder, make the whole ground shake.
Okay, Dave. Now we're gonna just stop it there. This is what I call state-sanctioned porn. This is pornography. Sponsored. Dave, if you could get the other one with Chantel Monroe Knight. There's another one with the Smoke Factory and Chantel Monroe Knight. Let's put that one up. This is the Honorable Corey Lane, but there's another one with Chantel Monroe Knight, the minister in the Ministry of Culture. And this then was also sanctioned by the Prime Minister of Barbados, the Minister of Culture. The Cultural Expansion Program is underneath the Ministry of Culture. Do not let the Prime Minister off the hook with this. Do not let Dr. Monroe Knight off the hook with this. Do not let Carol Roberts off the hook with this. And they're wondering about the moral decline. I can guarantee you these young people, because they're part of the program, this group is going to be now paid by the NCF to perform in Cropover. As a cultural practitioner, I can tell you that's how it goes. Well, your teenager VI said it's garbage because it is garbage. And this is what the National Cultural Foundation under the Ministry of Culture, of which the Prime Minister is the minister, this is what they paid. They paid. I checked with the videographers, and they're going to be on the show tomorrow. They paid them. They sponsored this. They paid these young people. These young people did not pull their pockets to produce this. This was produced and sanctioned by the Ministry of Culture and by the National Cultural Foundation. Somebody asked a question here. They ask, who is really responsible? Where should the moral decline be placed, on a government or the society in general? I say it's a combination, Island 007. Tonight, I am speaking up because we've on this show, we talk about parents, we talk about choices that young people make, we talk about all kinds of different things. However, these are young people that we should be leading in the right direction. The government it's by sponsoring and sanctioning this kind of work is leading the young people in the wrong direction. Now, I can tell you this, as someone who works with young people, if you set the standard, they will follow. They will follow. And if you say to them, listen, I have a grant, and the grant is, I have a grant for a music video, or produce a song and, bring this, submit the song, and then we are going to we're going to produce your music video. All you've got to do is to set down the guidelines of what it is that you're going to sponsor. Sponsors do it all the time. Sponsors do it all the time. And I tell you this, if these young people, they can't make that standard, and then they see others who are getting the grant, trust me, they're going to clean up their stuff to get the grant. Because anything with arts in Barbados is difficult to get money. So tonight, Island 007, we're speaking specifically about the government. Anybody who hears me talk about these kinds of things, I always say it's a comprehensive approach. Tonight, I'm speaking about a specific thing that the government has done. Dave, let's show a little bit of another state-sanctioned porn. Remember, get the children, move the children. Dave, let's look at. I sent you two that we had there that was sanctioned by the but was sponsored, right? And so if you can get it for me, please. And this is what I'm saying about what's going on, the hypocrisy. I showed you and why I say that the prime minister it's fake. She's false. False. We cannot believe anything that she says because she gave a statement. You remember, I read that last week, speaking about how women are portrayed in music and in videos, and that our young people need to do better. You remember? That was a couple years ago. And now her office, the ministry that she runs, is sponsoring this kind of thing for and setting you're basically, this is another program, guys, that is sponsored by the Cultural Expansion Program. Yeah. This is a serious situation, you know. And this is why I say there has to be new leadership in Barbados, because these that we have, they are not leading. These that we have are not leading. Young people are always going to want to experiment. They're always going to want to push the envelope. We have children, right? We're parents. A lot of us are. Or you have aunties, or you're a teacher. Children are always, but that's why the role of the adults in their lives. And so they took the $1 million at the vaping money that they got, right? And they have now sponsored yet another video. They've played this video that's sponsored by Chantel Monroe Knight, Prime Minister Mia Motley, and Carol Roberts.
Yo, boy, yo, baseline up, girl, get in his zone. This and a lazy one, but if you won't get set it on fire like from above four. Get busy, get busy, get busy, get busy, go busy, get busy, get busy, get busy, go busy, get busy, get busy, get busy, go busy, get busy, get busy, get busy.
Okay, stop, Dave, stop. Now, again, the same theme. It's the same theme. Even artistically, you are an adult in charge of a ministry. You are an adult, Carol Roberts, in charge of the National Cultural Foundation. And you could pick up money to sponsor pornography. And then we are crying about our young people when you, Carol Roberts, have set a terrible example in endorsing this. You have endorsed it. And there are good projects. I know of good projects that come to you, Carol Roberts, and you, Dr. Monroe Knight. that you refuse to give a cent to. It's only the other day when the church is quarreling about vice cartel because you know you're all guilty. You start to now giving a few dollars, throw a little something at the churches to shut them up. Huh? You start to throw two cents at the churches to shut them up. We know your dealings. But there are great movie projects out there, short, that can help young people. I had two young men who did a whole production on suicide, teen suicide. And the minister, a particular minister, told them, listen, don't bother to take the film overseas where you could make some money. They were offered $60,000 by PBS. And those young people believe US dollars, 60,000 US dollars. And the minister, because PBS told them, listen, if we give you the 60,000, we will have exclusive rights for a number of years. And the poor young men, they did it for the young people of Barbados. But the minister said, come and let us use it with our young people in the schools. That's what the minister told them. And they got the receipts for it. Don't tell us we're making up stories. And you know what? They had that meeting, a few little meeting, and after, these young men went and abandoned the whole PBS thing to serve their country. And the ministers within this government all of a sudden stopped calling. Those young people lost the 60,000 US dollars, and the film was never shown in the schools in Barbados. But you have money to sponsor pornography for young people to intake, to ingest. I say you're a disgrace. You are a disgrace. The National Cultural Foundation, you are a disgrace to this country. You are doing zero development. As a person who is in the arts, as a theater practitioner, a cultural practitioner, I say you're a disgrace. This lacks creativity. You could easily put some, you've done NIFCA. NIFCA is a fantastic, a program. And you know how to structure, you know how to structure, awards and so on, and what to give points for. You could easily have done something different to determine who you're awarding money. Carol Roberts, you lack ingenuity, you lack creativity. It is disgusting. And we should know that this is what the vape people wanted. But you took their money, though, Chantel Monroe Knight. You took it. Prime Minister Mia Martin, you took the money from the vaping company. What else did we expect? Somebody asked. Yeah? Disgusting. Completely disgusting. I'm waiting on my next guest. I can see he's in the room, but he is Mr. TULL, and Mr. TULL is as his devices are not connected. Mr. TULL, I suspect he might have to go out and come back in. Let me hear some of your thoughts about what is happening. Let me hear some of your thoughts about what you're seeing on your screen tonight. For some of you, you like the porn. I'm speaking about a society and where it's going. Somebody said that it's a waste of time hiding some things from the young people. They have seen that already. Well, they might have, but I'm not going to use the platform, and you know, I will always let you know the type of material that is coming on. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Tull is ready. Judy Moody said the National Cultural Foundation is being blatantly disrespectful to the very culture it claims to represent. Correct. And I know a lot of people, some of you, you don't have children, or you go and you enjoy this. Some people that you enjoy watching this. It doesn't make it right. Yeah. All righty. So we are moving along, and we have Mr. Tull here with us. Mr. Tull, give me a signal that you're ready. Okay, so I'm waiting on him to give me a signal that he is ready. While, guys, we need you to like and share. Like and share. So we have with us Dr. Alden Tull, and he's a retired educator whose last substantive post was head of Department of Marketing Studies at the Barbados Community College. Dr. Tull attended the Princess Margaret Secondary School and is a graduate of the UWI Management Studies program. He holds a Master of Science in International Market from Strathclyde University, Scotland, and the Doctor of Education from Sheffield University in England. His teaching career spans many of the key educational institutions in Barbados, including the Barbados Community College, BIMAP, the UWI, the Cable School of Business, and the Caribbean Examination Council, where he performed the role of chief examiner for CAPE for more than a decade. In addition to his teaching career, Alden has acted as a consultant to a diversity of companies and organizations, including the Barbados Vocational Training Board, the Heineken Export Group, the Nation Publishing Company, and the International Labor Organization. Alden is an itinerant Bible teacher and also publishes on his own website, thekingiscoming.net, as well as on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. He's married and has one son. And he's new to us, so I've got to introduce him. So let's welcome Dr. Tull. Welcome, Dr. Tull. Welcome to the Marcia Week Show.
Thank you very much, Marcia. It's long overdue, but we're here nonetheless.
Yes. It's great to have you, sir.
Mm-hmm. I was monitoring before I came on, and I was actually going to look for a scripture, I think, in the Romans Ray, which kind of explains what you're seeing in some of this so-called art. You know, when you lose track, when you lose your compass, that's what you expect. You see, people don't know what is tasteful, what's good, you know, what is useful. You see, that's the problem, and that's one of the things I want to talk about tonight. One of two things. The second one, of course, you know, it has to do with this whole question of Facebook. I hear people talking nowadays about trying to make money by publishing, but tonight, I hope after I've finished speaking, that people realize that it's not that easy, because we have some issues with Facebook, with censorship and so on. But we'll get to that a bit later.
Yes.
Yeah, but I want to speak to the general, what I call the corrosion that's going on in the society. I call it crime, corruption, corrosion, right? Yes. To cover all the things that you've been talking about on the show for the last couple of months, really. And the whole question, I use that word corruption because this is nothing that just started yesterday. If you want to believe that all this happened in the last 6 or so months, I think you're on the wrong track. And it's very important that people realize what the cause of a problem is. Now, we know that the flu is caused by a virus, and you can treat the symptoms. You can take a Panadol or so, but unless you get rid of the virus, you're still going to have the flu. So I think some of the problems we're having here is that people are thrashing around trying to figure out what the cause is of the problem, cause or causes. And tonight I want to propose something very radically different. It's actually something I wrote in an article which I sent to you. I sent the first part to you. And there's a part two. I haven't been able to check since I came in as to how many persons have read part one, but early this morning it was something over approaching 2,000 persons have read the article. So I want to speak about that. And I want to base what I'm going to say on that first part of that article. The first points I made in that article is that you have to figure out what the real cause of the problem is. Now, we have a lot of economists, sociologists, and other trained persons who will tell us what the cause of a problem is. Some will say it's an economic problem. Some will say it's a sociological problem, and so on. For example, those who say it's an economic problem will tell you the crime is due to the fact that people, are disadvantaged and they don't have enough. And I said, okay, that can explain some of the things that happen, quote unquote, explain, right? But how do you explain white collar crime? People who have money, sometimes millions of dollars, and they still commit crime. That you can't say that has to do with economic disadvantage. That doesn't make any sense there. And secondly, there are persons who commit crime out of passion. There's such a thing as a crime of passion, where in a split second you lose your cool, as we say, and you do some real serious damage. That has nothing to do with economic deprivation. So we got to be very careful when we talk about the cause of the problem, because if you think that's the cause of the problem, you're going to try to address it by economic means. My argument is, my thesis is that the cause of the problems in Barbados, and as a matter of fact, in most countries across the world, is really something spiritual, really. And I want to labor a bit on that, because some people, number one, are not going to agree with that up front. Some will not agree because they don't believe in anything called spiritual. And some will scratch their heads because they don't understand what you mean by spiritual.
Yes.
Okay, and I want to address that first. Now, the Prime Minister made a very interesting statement. It's reported to have made an interesting statement. I didn't hear it myself, when she said that we need to go back to Sunday school, send children back to Sunday school. Now, it is true, you may not like it coming from the Prime Minister, but it's true. And the question is, but why does that make sense? It makes sense because the older, quote unquote, generation went to Sunday school, went to church, and they heard the story, the record. Let me use the word record. I don't know it's word story because people like to pounce on the word story, you know what I mean? They heard the record of the creation, that God created a man, he made a body, he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and he became a living soul. That breath of life, spirit, ruah in Hebrew, okay?
Yeah.
So the old generation kind of know that you're not just a body, and you're not just material. They kind of know that there's some part of you that is invisible, immaterial, and that somehow is connected in some way to God. Let me leave it at that, right? The problem with a lot of the younger generation is that they did not come up in Sunday school. There are a lot of people who've never ever gone to Sunday school. And so they have not heard that record about the creation. Some of them are probably going to believe that they were made from some primordial sludge that came from somewhere out of nowhere. That's the theory of evolution, because that's what they teach them at school and university and so on. Okay? I don't know. Some others may probably think there's some hologram projected by alien intelligence. I don't know, right? I don't know what goes on in their heads, some of the heads. But I think the old generation had an idea that we are body, soul, and spirit, and we have a spirit. Okay.
Yes.
The younger generation does not understand that, and therefore, and let me go on this slowly. This younger generation has an identity crisis at the very basic level, because you don't know who you really are. At the basic level, that is body, yes, soul, and spirit. So if you don't know that, right, then a lot of other things are going to go around. Okay, and we can look back at generations, we can look at societies where people thought that life was just what you could see. And that is really one of the things that we have to contend with. We have to understand that there's a spiritual dimension to a human being. And the next point we have to understand is that, contrary to popular belief, that spiritual dimension is the more important one. Now, I know that people are going to challenge that. But here's a simple rebuttal to the challenge, okay? Let that spirit depart from your body and tell me what's going to happen. You're dead. You understand what I'm saying? So if you don't think that that spiritual side is important, just ask yourself that question. If that spirit is no longer in you, then you are dead. The body without the spirit is lifeless, it's dead. So we have to start asking ourselves, well, if that is true, how does this factor into what's going on in society? Well, I'm glad the unknown persons asked that question, because it is this. That spirit that we are talking about is, the easiest way to think of it is to think of the fact you have a spiritual body, a body, and a physical body. That spiritual body, like the physical body, has a heart. That heart is your mind. Now, I know I'm saying some heavy things here, but just bear with me for a minute, right? That heart is your mind. Well, in the scripture, it's called the heart because people in those days believed that your thoughts came from your physical heart. That's why they use the word in Greek, cardio, from which you get cardiogram and cardiology and so on. So they actually believe that your thoughts came out of your physical heart. But today we are a little more enlightened, I think, and we say that it's your psyche or it's your mind that your thoughts are coming from. Okay, we got that covered. All right. What else is there about your spiritual body, your spirit being? Well, we said it has a mind. And if you ask the question, what's the equivalent to the blood in your physical body, in your spirit? It is your thoughts. In other words, think of your mind as something that pumps thoughts through your physical body, because that's what it really is. And it gets a little deeper than that, because in that spirit, in that mind, dwell a number of things that we talk about here and people talk about. Things like your will, your emotions, your attitude, and your motives. All those things reside in the spiritual dimension of a human being. It's not in your physical body, right? That's in your spirit, you see. You see, if you don't believe that you have a spirit, well, then you can't accept that. It's quite obvious. So if that is true, if we accept that as a premise that our spirit contains those things,
yes, the heart or the mind.
That's right. Your mind, right, contains those things: your will, your emotions, your decision-making capacity, and so on. Well, then we have to ask ourselves, what is the real cause of crime? Now we have to get to that question.
Yes. Oh, wow. Boy, we have 12 minutes. We have 12 minutes. So go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, you see. Let's take a typical, you see, to get a degree in social science at university, you have to do some economics. So let me talk about economics, right? We talk about demand and supply, okay? And the economics textbooks and the economics teachers want to make you believe that it is something abstract in the air that you have to just try to appreciate and so on. In truth and in fact, demand is the totality of the decisions that consumers make about buying something. So straight away, right, demand is about something you have in your mind straight away. In other words, I hope you're with me. I hope you're because you have to follow the logic of what we're saying, right? When you draw these nice diagrams in economics class, really, you're already talking about human behavior, human decision making. So the question you have to ask yourself now, is there really an economic cause of a problem, or is it comes back to something in your mind or something spiritual? Are you there with me?
Yes, yes.
See? That is why you have to debunk the argument that crime is being caused by people who are disadvantaged, because we have to ask ourselves then, what causes the people to embezzle, this is the nice word for it, millions of dollars when they already have millions of dollars in their bank account? What causes that? You see what I'm saying? So there has to be something else other than being disadvantaged that causes that problem. And I'm saying that that problem resides in your mind, in your psyche, you see. So if you go looking for the real cause of problems, not the symptoms, really, it will have to be the mind, in the mind of the person. So when a fellow decides, somebody is harming me, really, and decides he's going for cutlass and so on, that's something he's thinking, that's his mind at play there, really. You see? When people decide, all right, I'm going to issue a contract to my buddies here, and I get a little kickback here and back, that's your mind. It's your mind. You already have a lot of money, of course, in the bank, right? But that's your mind there, you see? Nobody tell you to go and do that. And you can't pass a law against that. Well, you can, but you can't stop me from thinking that I want to do that. And for almost every law that you pass, people are going to find a way around it, because you're very going to know. All right? So what I'm saying then, to sum up at this point, is that if we think that the cause of the problem is something outside of us and not inside of us, we already lost. There's a famous sociologist thing who said that there are two types of people. One, where they see the locus of control is inside of them. The other set see the locus of control outside of them. Right? So you could be a disadvantaged person and say to yourself, all right, this society doing this to me, and they're unfair me, so I can get a gun and start shooting. You can argue that, and people have done that, you know that very well, right? Or you could say, look, the locus of control is inside of me. It means I have to start examine myself, figure out what I need to do, change the way I behave, change my outlook, do things, you see, and then I can transform myself. It reminds me of the scripture, be not conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's why that is there, because ultimately our behavior has to do with what we have in our heads, really. Right? So we got to get a firm grip as to what we're thinking when we talk about crime is there. Now, I know that the government, any government can do something about crime in the sense that it can punish crime appropriately. And when that fails, it means that the government has failed. And we've seen a lot of that. I think in the article I wrote, I said we need to think about what's going on in the United States as a test case. Just study what's going on there, and you'll begin to understand really what different people have completely different ideas in their head as to how things are supposed to work, what is right and what is wrong. And I've argued in that article that we are reaching the stage where we're going to start calling right wrong and wrong right. That's where America has gotten to right now. Okay? And that is going to happen to any society that rejects its spiritual foundations, i.e., that it was created by a creator who himself has rules and regulations, and he's not just about they want to beat you down, but somebody who wants the best for you, but requires that you do things that make sense, that allows you to enjoy the blessing of life. There are people driving electric cars in Barbados. I'm going to bet you that nobody stops at the Esso to put gas in that car. Am I correct? Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't run on gasoline. You see the point I'm making to you? But what we want to do is we are spiritual beings, but we want to run on all material things. We think, as some of your parents were saying weeks ago, we think that development is all about material things. It is not. What about the spiritual side of it? See? And so we have this problem then that there are a lot of people who don't know that there's that side of them. And there are some of those who know and should know better and who are not doing better and who are not behaving as though they're not just a body, you see.
Yes.
All right. And I mean, I think a woman was one of the most beautiful things that God created. I honestly believe that. But I see some women treating themselves and doing things themselves that I really can't understand. It boggles my mind, really. It really boggles my mind. Such people think that that's all they are, a body, you see. And then what comes with some of that is that people do anything, you see, with that body to sometimes make money and so on, because that's the only way out. You see, that's where you begin to get a lot of these things from. Because what's going on in people's heads? That's the problem. You can't legislate that, if you see what I'm saying. I mean, the only way to solve that problem if you do like in Minority Report starring Tom Cruise, that maybe before somebody before you think something, we got you and have you for a crime. I don't think we're going there, right? So while it is true that there's much that the government can do in terms of enforcing the law and so on, you can't predict when a flag gonna lose his cool. You can't do that. Yesterday we were coming home around a roundabout, and we were in the roundabout, so we had a right here. And there's this guy on the left flying coming with a truck. I'm like, I mean, all we could do is just, I don't know if we had time to even pray because we didn't know the guy was going to stop at all. I don't know what the rush was about. But eventually he stopped. Well, what, I don't understand those things, you know.
Yes.
You know, they're losing the cool, they're letting emotions control them. And a lot of things are happening that really should not happen. That's because the discipline that we should have, because we're exposed to quote unquote Sunday school and church, which people don't have nowadays because they don't even know that they have a spirit. Some people don't even know that.
Don't even, yeah.
You see? So
Very, very interesting, I must say. And you know, because if we believe that all that's happening to us, it's, you know, it's outside of us, as you put it, then and we don't understand where a lot of you know, because there are times when things are happening to us and it's outside of us, somebody hurting us, you know, it's outside of us, you know. But a lot of the when we are making choices, then, right, when we're making choices, and those a lot of times it's stimulated, it's coming from the mind. So I mean,
that's correct.
we have 4 minutes. How do we you're gonna have to come back and talk about the Facebook stuff, but how do we correct this? How do we begin to you know, I work with young people, right? How do we begin to say to them, hold a minute, you know, you don't have to let situations control you. You know, you can control your reactions and your responses. How do they, it's easier said than done, people will say, basically.
I was just going to tell you that it's easier said than done, because you know the strange thing about it is it takes very little to do the wrong thing because we live in an environment where that's all we see. I mean, yes, there's some good, but most of the time we hear crime. Matt Fingal raised that years ago. He wants to know why you were reporting all these bad things like that. You remember that one? He said that because that's all you hear, that's all you see, right? And if that is happening, it means it's going to be easier for people to do the wrong thing. So it is easier said than done. But I honestly believe there may be there are people, there are sociologists, there are people who what programs and so on. But I honestly believe that the solution to this problem, I mean the real solution to this problem, is to get people to come back to understand that there's somebody, just like you put it, something bigger than you. There's somebody there bigger than you. You see? See, that's one problem. As soon as you let go of that bigger person, the only person that is there is you. You start worshiping yourself. So everything you do is okay. But if there's somebody up there that's bigger than you, then the question is, and not only bigger than you, but owns you, by the way. Let me pause on that because a lot of people don't want to accept that. If you go outside and look up at the sky, you're going to see the stars. And you ask, so who made those things? You see, let's come back to basics, right? And who made you? Are you made from some kind of primordial sludge? Back to that question again. Or did somebody create you? If somebody created you, the first thing that my common sense tells me, because there's some people feel that you can't reason about spiritual things, you know, which is nonsense actually, right? If that is true, then the first thing I have to ask is, what does that person have anything to do with me? Does that person want anything from me at all? That's what I have asked myself. You see, and that's one of the reasons why society is going to raise, because people don't ask that question. They don't care about that question. For them, this is life to be lived, and we do it the best you can. As some young fellow said years ago, what he said, live fast, die young, and make a pretty cards. You probably haven't heard that one before.
No, I never
Live
heard it.
fast, die young, and make a pretty cards.
Yes, yes,
Practice
yes,
that.
yes.
And that's what you're seeing doing, a lot of what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Because
But
there's nothing outside of people
oh,
that gives them direction, guidance as to, there's nothing that people have to say, I'm obligated to do this and do that. You see, that's the problem that we have. And you can pass as many laws as you want. But if people don't see or acknowledge somebody outside of themselves, they're going to take a chance they can to do things around. They're not going to say, all right, okay, I don't care what the law says, I'm not going to do that. You see, they're just going to
yes.
do what they can do and get away with it. That's what the problem it is. So it's easier said than done.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, boy, it is quite interesting. I must say, I was writing and following the logic, and I must say, Dr. Tull, very, very clear, makes a lot of sense. And I know you didn't get to touch on the other thing, and it's the thing is that it's going so great, you would not know that it's been 25 minutes already. you know really, that is gone. But I would like, and we've talked about this, but I would love for you to be able to come back, and we continue these kinds of this kind of discourse. I think it's important because there are lots of people watching with children, grandchildren, and we are all trying to find solutions. You would have heard me at the beginning. I was speaking specifically about the government, about that particular thing. But do I believe that it's all the government? No, it's not all the government, and I've said that over and over. But so we need to be able to understand ourselves and understand how to raise the young people, the children and the young people that we have in our midst. And before you go, let me just ask you to give your just a final comment. It's not a goodbye forever. If you would indulge us, we would love for you to come back. Yes, so we'll give us some final thoughts before you go back.
Well, my final thought will be one of the points I made in the article about the same thing you're talking about, the whole question of government. I said at the beginning earlier that the Prime Minister even said you should send children back to Sunday school. And she also said, by the way, that government alone can't raise the children. But here's the problem. It was never the government's job to raise children. Who ever said that? Look in the scripture. It never was assigned to government. So I want to leave it at that. It's the parents' job to raise the children. The scripture puts that fairly and squarely on parents. When I was in Strathclyde, I remember I heard of a case of a magistrate here who was going to set about to put some parents in prison because they would not control the children.
Yeah.
Maybe that's part. I don't know, but I leave that with you.
Well,
Okay.
thank you. This has been quite refreshing. And on Saturday evening, actually, I don't know if you heard about it, and I will send the information to you, but Adrian Agard believes that, God has given him a special message. And I know him, I know him before I even came to Barbados. And I don't know him of somebody who even speaks like that. But when he called me, I was shocked. And he said, Marcia, I have to give this message to Barbados. And basically, he wants to speak to the spirit of Barbadians. And so as you were talking, I couldn't help but remember that. But so thank you so much, sir, for coming tonight. And I hope you come out to the Independence Square on Saturday evening at 6 o'clock, where Mr. Adrian Agard is going to share with what he believes. God is speaking to the spirit of Barbados. Okay? People of Barbados. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much. Thank you.
God bless. Very,
Sure.
very wonderful. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, Dave. Just before we have our next guest, Mrs. Stephen Strickland, who's coming to speak to us about maternity leave. I'm going to ask you, Dave, to just to play the clip, and Mrs. Strickland, give me 2 minutes, and then we have another clip of the the aunt who was basically the children were staying by her when the shots went through the house and grazed two of the children. Remember? So this woman's name is Margaret Henry, Mrs. Strickland, and I'm going to actually bring you in the studio while we play these two things. So get ready to come in. Go ahead, Dave, and play.
Something good gonna happen in this year.
Hi, I'm Adrian Agard. To my beloved Barbados, God has heard your cries. He sees the pain and the blood of our sons. On Friday, March 20th, I left for St. Vincent and the Grenadines with a group of 8 gifted musicians and singers. There in St. Vincent, the Lord gave me a message for this land. I returned on Monday, and now I must speak. Join me this Saturday from 6 p.m. at Independence Square at the national launch of Barbados Gospel Fest 2025. God is speaking, Barbados. It's time to listen.
Blessings gonna find me here. Oh yeah. Favor gonna find me here. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and this is why I started the show like that, for us to really think about where we are going morally. Dave, if you could play that mic on the move quickly before Mr. Strickland comes on. He's on before he starts to speak to us about maternity leave. Dave, can you play that? Yes, thank you. Let me just set this up quickly so people remember. You heard the voice, Mrs. Strickland. I don't know if you remember hearing the voice of this woman, and she's calling out to the Prime Minister. She's calling out to the Attorney General. Mrs. Strickland, good evening. Do you remember her?
Good evening. It still resonates in my mind because she was passionate. She was desperate, so therefore, I remember, and for any person who heard her and does not remember, I think, something's wrong.
Yes. I think we need, I love the way the show went tonight, where we highlighted what the immorality that is being sponsored by the government. And then we had someone to break down to us, what it means to be body, mind, and spirit, body, soul, and spirit, and here it is. I went to see this woman today. I went to visit her on Nelson Street. She showed me the spot, Mrs. Strickland, where the children were sitting. They were not involved in anything, any crime or running the streets. The 11-year-old had just come back from Shonathan's funeral. The 13-year-old who goes to his school, and he was just sitting outside, Mrs. Strickland, drinking a fruity. And I want Barbadians to think we must not forget about this. We're going into crop over with all of that that kind of music running in our heads. We must pause and we must remember this. Don't forget this. And she was keeping those children, and the 14-year-old was sitting inside, and she showed me inside where we was watching TV, and the shots were coming through our house and grazed the children. So go ahead, Dave, please. Thank you.
We should organize this and try to get all the churches, and let us have a march and gather out there by the Independence Square, and just have a service for this island, this nation, and its people, the children. We need to get back to God, because something is coming. Oh, eternal God, I ask you, oh Father God, I just stand here before you at this blessed noon hour to outstretch your hand over this island of Barbados and its people. Father God, I ask you in the name of Jesus, the intercessor, to stand on the gap, oh God. Father God, I ask you in the name of Jesus to outstretch your hand, oh God, and be our shield, our buckler there, God. Save us, oh eternal God, from the snares of the fallen and nights of pestilence, Father God. For we are your children. We are your people, oh God. Israel, oh God, Israel. We need to pray.
Yes, and so
God, accept his blessings. I should not truly blessings of God and get back in God's face.
yes.
So if he's of God, and you say, God, ask him to do this, I will accept it in the name of Jesus and no other name but.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And those of you you're watching, this is Margaret. And can you tell me your last name again?
Henry.
Margaret Henry, that we heard crying out, and we cried with her when we heard her. And we're here at, and this is the house that the little boys got shot. Two boys, one 14 and one 11. The 11-year-old was sitting here, wasn't he? Was sitting right there. He's on the chair there. He was sitting right there where she pointed. And the 14-year-old was sitting inside somewhere. I won't show inside of her house. But and Margaret was crying out to the Attorney General and crying out to the Prime Minister to do something. And we came by to see her today. And Margaret, you have so inspired me. You are such an anointed woman. When I got here, as soon as I got there, I heard, quiet your spirit before you go to her. And I tell you, you're a mother in Zion, and we are going to take you up on that call for the march. I told someone this morning at 3:15 that I keep feeling that we need to, based on what they cried, we need to have a march, but I didn't get all of it yet. So I'm standing here. I told him that this morning at 3:15, and I'm now getting the rest of it. You have the route, you have everything. He will show me the route, Dale will show me the route, Dale, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it. You said you want all denominations.
Yes, it's not only about one. It's because we all live on this little rock. It's about the whole island. Who choose to come, but so be it. But all the denominations should try to get on board, and we are praying not only for the children but for the nation as a whole.
Yes, for the nation. Yes. So when we get to Independence Square, worship and prayer for the nation.
Yes.
Yes. We're going to get it done before the end of this month. Okay? Yes. I promise you, Margaret. God bless you. God bless you. Everything works for the good. Yes, ma'am. Amen. Amen. God bless you. All right. Yes. Yes. Yeah, and I'm still in that moment, Mr. Strickland, Reverend, Mr. Strickland, and I know we're going to do that march. It's supposed to be a march, led, the whole family would be invited, but led by women, led by mothers, led, because that cry that Mr. Strickland, that came out. And so it will be a march led by, and I'm thinking the date, we'll come back with it, but it's something to do with Mother's Day, either the Saturday before Mother's Day. But I'm not going to take any more of your time, and you're going to have your full amount of time. But so go right ahead, Mrs. Strickland.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Marcia, to the loyal opposition. First, I would want to commend Adrian for what he has proposed. Actually, we went to school together at secondary school. So I would have known Adrian from the time I was 11 years of age. And he's the same person he was at that age. He was in second form, I was in first form. And I'm so glad to see that, he's still keeping the good work up. Tonight, we want to continue with the national insurance. And we're going to be dealing with maternity benefit, and I'm going to be dealing also with unemployment. Mm-hmm. Now, as would be expected, a maternity benefit is only paid to women. I have to say that because there have been so many different push for the LGBT movement and gender equality and a lot of things that at present, maternity benefit is only paid to a woman. Now, in order for a woman to qualify for maternity benefit, it would mean that she would have had to have had 16 paid contribution in a 26 weeks period. 16 paid contributions in a 26 weeks period. Mm-hmm. Now, I have been fighting for almost 20 years to have that legislation changed, and during the St. Lucie Speak, I spoke to the whole issue of change in respect of the national insurance legislation for that aspect, and also for maternity grant. Yeah. I'm going to get to the maternity grant shortly. I'm glad that they acknowledge and they have changed the legislation, well, proposed legislation for the maternity grant. But at present, for the maternity benefit, the woman would have had to have worked at least 16 weeks in a particular 6-month period. Now, there are many cases where women are sick during their pregnancy, and they are in the receipt of sickness benefit. During COVID, there were a number of women who would have been unemployed during their pregnancy, so that when they came time to apply for a maternity benefit, they did not qualify because they would have had less than 16 paid contributions. They would have had credits. I would have explained credits earlier, whereby if a person is off Monday to Saturday, they receive a credit. They would have had credits, but credits, while they are used for sickness and unemployment, for a person to qualify, the legislation for maternity has not been proposed to be changed. And again, I'm calling on the Minister of Labor, the Honorable Colin Jordan. I'm calling on the Attorney General to have that legislation changed speedily, because many women are continually suffering as a result. Some, yes, I said, are sick from the time they conceive, and therefore, while they can qualify for the period for sickness benefit for the period of 12 weeks, which is present, that is at 6.2%, while they should be qualifying for maternity benefit, which is at 100%. So that, as I said, lady, she does qualify for maternity benefit.
Okay, we're not hearing you. Are we hearing him? You just cut out.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Yeah, we're hearing you now.
There was a call which came in. I'm using my cell phone, and this would have my apologies. Right.
Yes,
so
no
that
problem.
as I said, the maternity benefit is paid for a period which is no more than 6 weeks prior to the birth of the baby.
Yes.
No more than 6 weeks prior. Now, the woman could be on sick leave prior to the birth of the baby, and the baby could be born at any moment, obviously. And therefore, if she does not return to work between sickness and the birth of the baby, then it means that it will start from either 6 weeks prior to the birth of the baby or her last day of work. So she could have been on sick leave with a claim, for argument's sake, to end the 2nd of May, 2025, and the baby is born on the 1st of May. She was on sick leave. It would mean then that the maternity would go back 6 weeks prior to the 2nd of May, and therefore, having been paid 6.2% for sickness, she would now be paid the difference between sickness and maternity, and therefore, her maternity benefit will now end 6 weeks after the birth of the baby. So she would have had 6 weeks prior, and she would only have 6. No, she could, on the other hand, she could have gone to work on the 1st, and the baby is born on the 1st, which has happened on numerous occasions, and therefore the maternity benefit will start from the 1st and go 12 weeks afterwards. So it is
okay.
no more than 6 before, and
6
definitely
after.
6 after, or from the date of birth of the baby, it can go 12 weeks. A maternity benefit at present is 13 weeks, 12 weeks, sorry, and not 3 months. The legislation is due to be changed in June from 12 weeks to 14 weeks. So that would not be an issue, but there are those women sometimes have thought it was 13 weeks and did not return to work after the 12th week and found themselves in trouble. But that would not be an issue come the beginning of June, based on what was said in the budget. So the maternity benefit, as I said, is paid from you could have a case where it could end up being 13 weeks, because she could have been off 6 weeks before. The baby wasn't born on the date that the doctor indicated was the expected date of confinement. So it could be 1 week more, and therefore she could end up getting 6 weeks before, 6 weeks after, but she would have to be covered for the week in there, so she could end up getting 13 weeks. But that's the rare situation and not the norm. So that now no employer is obligated to pay a woman for maternity benefit. There are some companies who pay their staff, the female staff, maternity, their salary, and when they receive the check from national insurance, they will refund the employer. Now, because the maternity is 100%, the women benefit whereby it's a sickness claim, which is 2/3%. But when it's a maternity, she wants to have her maternity benefit and not the salary. But if you are in an agreement with your employer, then that's between yourself and your employer. Sufficient that if you are paid by your employer and your employer make deductions from your salary, from that salary, and because you would have received 12 weeks credits, you can both, either yourself or the employer, can ask for a refund of contributions for that period when the person was paid a salary during maternity. And the same thing goes for sickness. Okay, so for maternity benefit, then, as I said, it is paid for a woman who also would have given birth in Barbados, unless she left Barbados for medical reasons. Now, there are those women who seek to obtain the citizenship for their baby, their child. And so there are those who leave Barbados very much pregnant, sometimes 2 weeks prior to delivery. Obviously, they will conceal their pregnancy while traveling on the aircraft, but they travel to America and for the purpose of having their child being an American citizen. In most cases, America. Now, she might have stopped work for the 2 weeks or maybe even more prior to the birth of the baby. Now, in order to claim a maternity benefit, a full maternity benefit, there is the expected confinement, which is before the baby is born, but then there is the confinement, and the confinement certificates, the doctor states, I attended you at your confinement, which took place on, and it must be signed by a registered local practitioner. So she goes to America and she gives birth to the baby. Now, in many cases, she can't get out of America until sometimes 6 weeks after the birth of the baby, because she has to get the birth certificate and whatever else. Now, when she returns to Barbados, she does not have a confinement certificate signed by a local medical practitioner. So she seeks now to get the remaining amount of her maternity benefit. She would have had maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, sometimes 6 weeks. And therefore, in order to claim the remaining amount, she may be asked to bring the birth certificate of the child. Now, you can have a situation in Barbados, the mother might not have obtained a maternity, the confinement certificate, so a Barbadian birth certificate can be used. But once she brings that birth certificate for that child from America, the first thing that the officer is going to ask her to do is to bring her passport. And therefore, the passport would indicate that she left Barbados on such and such a date. She returned on such and such a date. It would mean now that for that 6 weeks period that she received maternity benefit, she's going to have to pay it back because she was out of the island. And therefore, she might not have got back in within the 6 weeks afterwards. Now she got back in within 2 weeks, she will get the remaining 4 weeks. But I'm saying that the situation is that a maternity benefit is not paid where the mother has left the island, except for medical reasons, by instructions by her medical practitioner, and that's by letter.
Wow.
So that's the maternity benefit to some extent.
Let me I know I normally don't interrupt, but let me ask everybody, did you all know that? Did you all know what you just said? Had no idea. Anybody out there know? Or the comment, there's no comments, everybody listening, or the comment section not working? But continue, please.
Marcia, 1 out of 1,000 women in Barbados know that. I'm telling you, only women who suffered would know that. Only women who have suffered, where they left the island to come back, then to recognize that they can't get the maternity, and they have to pay back what they received because they left. Now, so that for the maternity benefit, there was legislation with Labor Department where if a woman was pregnant, if she took maternity leave, and I'm saying leave and not benefit, the fourth time with the same employer, she terminated her own employment. That was changed with the employment rights legislation. So a woman now can receive maternity benefit and maternity leave for any amount of pregnancies. Now, in 2006, around 2006, when there was the actuarial study, there would have been an indication that we had a serious fall in birth rate. I remember Minister Marcy Dola, Minister Ronald Jones echoed what the actual report stated, and he got a good tongue lashing. In 2022, for one reason, in 2022, there was another actual report which stated the same thing, and the Honorable Prime Minister echoed what Ronald Jones said, and she got a tongue lashing maybe for another reason. But it is a fact that we have a serious fall in birth rate, because if you look across the, if you listen shortly to the number of children doing the common entrance exam, the numbers have been falling rapidly over the last almost 20 years. So that we have a serious problem with the birth rate. But that's the maternity benefit to a large extent. Now, there is the maternity grant. Now, before going any further, as I said, come June, the legislation should be changed, whereby it's going from 12 weeks to 14 weeks, and where there's a multiple birth to 16 weeks, because a multiple birth at present is still 12 weeks. But where there's a twin or triplet, then she would be entitled to 16 weeks maternity benefit, and this will be paid by national insurance again, and not by the employer. Now, where a woman does not qualify for a maternity benefit, she can apply for a maternity grant. A woman can claim a maternity grant on the earnings of the father of the child. The legislation proposed to be changed based on my passionate plea, whereby there's going to be no requirement where the mother and the father must be living together. In other words, cohabitating at the same house. So that at present, if it's a married couple, then there's no requirement of the number of years. But if the persons are unmarried, then they would have to be proved by way of affidavits by two persons that they were cohabitation at the same house. Now, a married woman cannot receive a maternity grant where the father of the child is not her husband's.
Okay, say that. Where? Hold it. Oh, okay.
I pause because I know that. I pause because I know that it's sinking in slowly. A married woman cannot receive a maternity grant, where the father of the child is not her husband's.
So if the married woman, let's put it in plain English, if she steps out, as they say, and she went and had an affair with somebody else and got pregnant, no maternity grant for her.
None.
Oh.
On the other hand, if a single woman has a child from a man who is married to someone else, and you can add the same thing you said just now, that single woman cannot receive a maternity grant either.
Oh, interesting.
Now, very interesting, because once they're not living together, there is need for an affidavit by two persons. No. Once you're claiming a maternity grant, where because they have not changed, have not changed the legislation whereby well, I'm not even certain on that, because they have not, national has not got any legislation in respect of the change. But let me say this for the present legislation, so that if they're not living, if they're not married, then if the man's name is on the birth certificate, they would have to be living together for 1 year. If his name is not on the birth certificate, they would have to be living together for 2 years. So if you have a situation where single women have made claims for maternity grant, and there was a relationship built on the computer system, but she did not indicate that the man is married, so that the wife sometimes claimed a year afterwards to really, because she wasn't working either, and it created a lot of problems. So as I said, for the new legislation, I'm not certain all that will be written, so I would prefer not to state categorically what will happen when it moves where there's no need for proof that they're living together. Okay, but for certain, now there's the maternity grant. Now there's the proposed legislation now for paternity leave. Now I did not hear anything in the budget indicating that there will be a paternity benefit. I remember speaking on a CBC program a night with the Honorable Colin Jordan, when they were speaking about the paternity leave. And I asked the question if there was going to be paternity benefit. And he did not answer in the affirmative. Now, the situation is that...
Benefit or grant?
But the proposal in the budget was for paternity leave. So there may be a lot of men out there who believe that because the word paternity was used, that they will be allowed maybe 1 week to spend time with the mother of the child and he will be paid. But that was not clearly stated, in the budget. So therefore, most likely he will be granted 1 week, but there will be the employer is not obligated to pay him, neither will national insurance pay him. So I would want that when that legislation is passed, which should come into effect from the beginning of June, that it will be clearly stated, based on my understanding of a paternity leave, and not paternity leave and benefit. Because once he is on paternity leave, then his contract of service remains. There's no broken service. Okay, and that's the reason for the paternity leave. And he may want to spend the time with his child and without an income for that week, but he needs to know that it's going to be left up to his employer, or he will have to do without. So that's the maternity benefit, the maternity grant, and the paternity leave. Okay, I'm going to go to the unemployment. I hope that you will be able to cover unemployment before my time elapses.
Right, but we have about 8-9 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to go down a bit quickly. I'm certain that there will be those that may want to ask questions in the question and answer session. At the end of the program. I'll make myself available. Okay, so that once a person becomes unemployed, meaning that they were from work for an entire week, or, and this is part of the legislation, I did not have it in the slide, but this part of the legislation which is short time, so that there was a lot of short time during COVID, whereby if the income for the particular period that is going to be used is $1 less than half their regular salary, they can claim short time. So during COVID, individuals were working for less than half their salary. I did not say less days. I did not say less hours. It must come down to that the salary paid for that particular week must be $1 less than half their regular salary. Now, so that the person can then could have received an income, and also they could have received a benefit for unemployment, which is called short time. So that once a person then is unemployed Monday to Saturday, and they're not receiving an income for whatever reason, that individual should report to the e-healthy walk-up building within 2 weeks of when they start work, within 2 weeks of when they start work, it is the person's responsibility to report with or without the unemployment form, which is called a U3 form. The unemployment form, you must report within 2 weeks, with or without that form. And many persons sometimes, because they did not obtain that form for various reasons, they felt that they could not register, or person told them that they could not register. But they should report, because once they report, they will be registered. The officer will indicate to them by way of a card to return to the unemployment office every 3 weeks, because you are reporting to make a declaration. The declaration that you are making basically says that during the last 3 weeks, I was unemployed, I did not work, I did not receive any remuneration, and I was in Barbados. Again, there are those who choose to leave Barbados in between the 3-week period and get back in the island and continue the unemployment. I remember one night I was in the arrival hall at the airport, and there were some women that were ducking and hiding. I didn't pay much attention to it until I realized that they were unemployed, had slipped up maybe to Miami to shop. I came back in, and now they couldn't come and tell me that they were to sign that declaration saying that they were in the island. So you're supposed to be in the island during that period. If you leave the island for whatever reason, even if you're going on government business, nationals will not pay you unemployment for that period of time.
Wow.
Nationals will not pay
How
you.
do they prove it that you weren't here?
No. I'm saying to you that there are those who, by virtue of the fact that the date that they are due to return to the unemployment office, they did not report. Once you do not report, the officer is going to ask you why you did not report on that date. If you say to that officer that you were out of the island on whatever business and whatever else, then you can be asked to bring your passport, and you're not going to be paid for that period. The government agency would have to take responsibility to pay you for the period that you were out of the island.
Oh,
okay?
wow.
Yeah, it is that serious. So, as I said, once you're off Monday to Saturday, then you claim an unemployment. If it is only for 1 week or less than 2 weeks, so you're not paid for the first 3 days. But most cases, it goes past unemployment claim goes past 2 weeks. Now, the card would indicate that if you return to work, because some persons are laid off for a specific period of time, some are indefinite. Once you return to work, then you fill the bottom of the card and return to the National Insurance Office, and you'll be paid up to the date that you prior to you return to work. Now, so that for argument's sake, you were off for, and you're entitled to a period of 26 weeks in a 1 year period, so that you could be off for say 12 weeks. You went back to work, or you took another job for less than 13 weeks, and you are laid off again. You go back to the unemployment office. Your unemployment will start at week 13 and continue on week 14 and continue on to the 26 weeks. On the other hand, if the job or you go back to work is more than 13 weeks, then you may accumulate a couple of days as you go forward. But for certain, once you are off and you return to work and you go back on unemployment, then you will continue. After 26 weeks, your unemployment will end, and you cannot receive unemployment until 1 year from the date that you receive your last unemployment payment.
Oh, wow.
And you still would have to qualify by virtue of having at least the 20 weeks in the 3-month period and 7 in the relevant quarter. So the number of persons who, having exhausted the 26 weeks, they find themselves, and you see, employers have been known to use some of this to their advantage to frustrate staff, and they will not get into that, because employers will then, those who don't know, will use it against employees. But sufficient to say that once you have exhausted your 26 weeks, you have to wait another 1 year from the end of the unemployment before you receive more unemployment. Now, for unemployment, there are 3 areas of unemployment. 1, if you are laid off. 2, if you are dismissed because of your own misconduct. 3, if you resign. Now, once you are laid off, then there's no need for an interview.
Okay.
Once you are dismissed because of your own misconduct or you resign, well, prior to COVID, there was an interview, but now there's a process whereby when you register, you're going to be given a statement form, and you should indicate on that statement form all that relates to you becoming unemployed. You may not get another chance to explain it to anyone else. So there are times when persons put just simple basic information, they don't go into in depth on what happened, and then they suffer. So because the officer can either call the employee, that individual, for further information, the officer can call the employer for further information, because the employer might have indicated on the unemployment form not following company policy, because the employer fears litigation. But in truth and in fact, the person stole from the employer, but the employer is not going to put that they stole, because if it has to go to court, that form can be used for or against the employer. So the employer may say not following company policy, but when the officer called the employer, the employer may tell the officer everything that happened, which cannot be used in a court of law, because there's a matter of hearsay, as it were, that the officer would have to say that this is what the person said to me, and the person can deny it. But sufficient that I would suggest the person when they go to do that statement form, put all of the relevant information. Now, the officer is not obligated to come down on the side of the employee or the employer. So the officer may decide, I believe the employee, and not disallow the person for any part of the unemployment, even though he or she could disallow that person up to 6 weeks of their unemployment. In other words, the maximum that you can lose once you're available for work is 6 weeks of the 26 weeks. On the other hand, the officer may believe that the employer had good reason to dismiss the person, or the officer may decide the person that resigned did not have valid reason to resign, and sometimes that is the truth. Then the officer may decide to disallow that person for 6 weeks of their unemployment. But once it's a disallowance, the individual has the option of an appeal to the appeals tribunal. So it's the decision of the staff member, the National Insurance Department, is not a closed case. So that once the person resigns or they're dismissed, they will be interviewed, and therefore they may very well lose up to 6 weeks of their unemployment. Now, if the employer refused to give the employee or the former employee that green form, because some employers try to hold the person to ransom by not providing it, National Insurance can and will make a decision, and therefore in most cases it'll be a decision in favor of the employee.
Yes.
Because the employee has registered, the employee has sought a national, because what national will do is, if the person is unable to obtain that form, then national will send an officer in the compliance section to the employer to obtain that form. But even when the officer goes to that workplace, some employers may bluntly refuse to provide the officer with that form, even though that they can be charged in a court of law. I've never known of a situation where nationals charge an employer. They would just pay that person their unemployment, and because that's a long litigation case, which is not worth it, you just pay the person the unemployment. So that to a large extent, that is the unemployment situation. As I said quickly, once the employee is off from work, it is their responsibility to go and register with or without that form. They must report within 2 weeks of the date that they start work. After that, they're going to start to lose a week. Each week they don't go. So if you don't go, if you go in the third week, you would have lost 1 week. Okay. If you,
Yes.
for the purpose now of doing your declarations, if you were supposed to go, you can go any day in that week. So if the person had a date for Friday, you know, we have 2 bank holidays this week. The person could have gone on, I think Tuesday. Yes, it was a word. Yeah, yes, the person could have gone.
Right.
Yes, even though they have a date for Friday, because the same 3-week period that is used for Mondays are used for Friday. So there's gonna be a lot of people at the unemployment office this week because of the 2 bank holidays. You had to put 5 days individuals into 2 days. So normally when that situation is normally very, very rough on both members of the public and members of staff.
That's
But
right.
as I said, so if you go next week now, if the person goes next week, then they were supposed to register this week because the crowd was large, they're gonna lose a week because they were impatient and they're gonna lose. If the unemployment is $400, that's $400 you lost simply because you did not report in the week that you were supposed to report in.
Okay. Wow. Listen, this is somebody said that you need a whole show on it, but I think it would be an overload to do a whole show. But we you got through a lot. I am learning some things and reviewing some things that Caswell did as well. So thank you so very much. And we Bajan Watch Woman, if you could keep that question for the at 9:15 is when we're going to have the Q&A. All right, so that's a nice question there. If I'm going to put it up, and I don't know if Dave can take a picture of it. Should males not receive paternity benefit given that they contribute to NIS at the same rate as females? So that's something that we will
I'm going to answer
discuss
that one.
afterwards.
I'm going to answer that one after 9.
Yes, after 9. Thank you so much. Very, very, I love this one. But can you wait in the green room and be back out at 9:15, sir?
Yes, please. I'll do that.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much. Yes, God bless. Yes, wonderful. And I want to say that we are passing the information on to those of you who call in the week to speak with Mr. Stephen Strickland. 236-7000. 236-7000 is a number that you can call if you have specific situation, and he is sure to give you a call back. You call us and we pass the number on. Okay. Well, I told you that we have coming up Mr. GLYNE Murray, and he's here with us. Good night, Mr. Murray.
Good night, Marcia. Good night. Quite, as usual, quite an interesting show so far. I hope to add to that quality as we go along.
Yes, sir. And I can see you all dressed up very tonight, man. Woo.
You like it?
Yes, sir, yes. Who is it? It's a wardrobe coordinator. Is that
no, manager, please. Manager, please.
The wardrobe manager.
Right, that's right.
Let her know you're looking lovely.
Thank you. I think if she's coordinator, she'll have to get less pay or less benefits than the manager. So I have to give her management title and status. Thank you very much.
Yes,
good to be here.
Sir. Yes, so go right ahead. I know Dave has your so you're dealing with by-election more than just filling a seat, and it's not coming up anymore. It's actually here, and Dave is going to put your in the meantime, guys, can you please share? Everybody go ahead and share and like and share and like and share. Important that we do that. Okay, thank you so much. Yes, go right ahead. It's coming up. The slide is coming up.
Yeah, I'll start by first of all thanking and commending Mrs. Rose Corbin for her presentation earlier this week dealing with by-elections. I thought she gave a very solid, official, academic presentation on what is to the forward of the law, etc. But I'm going to do a bit more than that this time. I'm going to give you some insights into some of the techniques behind by-elections, because elections are generally now almost a science. It is done with much expertise and study and consideration of theories and concepts and practice, etc. And so it is not done by chance. And therefore, I want to say that first of all, I want to say that the first slide by elections by themselves, like I said, as the title said, more than just filling a seat, it has wider implications. Or one of these, which are not always immediately obvious to persons, is that while technically and legally it's filling a seat in a particular constituency, the debate, the narrative can and should involve the whole country. In other words, it becomes a kind of mini referendum on the government, rather than focusing just on the issues from within that particular constituency. Good politicians always use the occasion to pass judgments on the performance of the government all over, and therefore force them to deal with it in a focused, concentrated way, so that it can be discussed, and usually it has an impact on that particular constituency. Now, like by-elections in some other countries are called a bipole or a special election, but they mean the same thing. So therefore, I hope, having said, I hope to hear that. I fully expect that in this coming by-election in St. James North, that the same opportunity be used to deal with some of the issues, not only in St. James North, but in St. James, in St. Peter, in the north of Barbados, in the west of Barbados, and because it'll be an opportunity to see if you get some answers, some information, some guidance, some explanations which we have not had for more than a year on some of these matters. So I think the government feet should be held to the fair river possible and force them to give just some information on the issue. Part of the political implications too is that the by-election can take on such a focus that people can lose sight of what's really happening in the country, and because it is so difficult to control the narrative of the by-election, persons are people take it in very, very great care in choosing the date and time and place when because they know the whole thing can come unfurled, ripped apart by events. And the thing about a by-election, because of the concentrated attention, anything happening in the rest of society can impact on it. So, for example, like in St. Peter, 1984, by-election was called, but a flood came with that impact on it. So you things that you can't control. I give a story about that. I also give you a story about even how people behave or what they say on the platform can have an impact on the by-election. So these issues, therefore, should be discussed and ventilated and examined closely. And therefore, there is also the referendum is, like I said, a general vote by the electorate on a single political question that has been referred to them for a direct decision. And I'd like to know that, as far as I can discover, we have never had a referendum in Barbados. Never. I remember Prime Minister Arthur was contemplating one at one time.
Really?
Yeah, to go with a republic. We had said we spent time trying to. Even you have to be very careful even of the wording of the question.
Yes.
So that's great. So
could I say something to the viewers? Victorious lady, thank you for recognizing that it's decreasing. When that happens is that we have a lot of people who are reporting the site, and that's why I noticed the numbers are low. So a lot of people are reporting, so you must go ahead and because it's dropping. The likes are decreasing. That's what's going on. It happens all the time. Yes, continue, Mr. Murray.
So therefore, our government would look for what they see as the perfect time to bring this by-election. And I'm sure the Prime Minister will take her time, very careful time, to try to choose May the 21st for various reasons that day, because it thinks all the stars are aligned, everything is in order, and that should enhance their chances of winning the by-election. And so that's the way it's used. Very, very, and timing is very important in human affairs, and therefore, what happens also is one of the, if you look at slide, if you have the slide, the advantage of incumbency. one of the benefits of a government calling a by-election is it has access to patronage, resources, what is called the advantage of incumbency. Incumbency being you are in office, and therefore this is a legal undertaking as a by-election, and therefore you have legal access to government benefits, resources. If a pipe bursts, if there's a bad road, you can fill the potholes, etc. You can try to tidy it to make it as perfect and clean and ready for that occasion. As a matter of fact, I remember in the city, I have a very lasting memory for the city by-election in 1976, when there was the night before the election at 6 o'clock. The then government was still paving the streets down in New Orleans. I was working at the African. They called me everywhere. I saw the hot Barbara Green. The steam coming up at 6 o'clock. It's dark, but they wanted the gift, so they go to all the kind of extremes to make sure that they get full benefit and full benefit from it. So you can award jobs, award contracts. You do everything to sweetly post the pot. They give the best. Of course, it is commonplace in that regard, and what makes it so noticeable is that the opposition, whoever they are not in an equal position to compete with that. So that is one of the reasons why they think that that will make their things better for them. So I'm going to give you some. I want to give you some insight since it's a by-election. For example, one of the earliest by-elections I can recall, if you do your search, in 1958 in St. John. I'm making use of that example. Now, by-elections are meant to fill a seat, but again, it's more than. It can also create notable personalities in politics. Now, Elbar would run for the by-election in St. John in 1958 because one of the then sitting members, Mr. Victor Vaughan, had won a seat in the federal elections to go to federal parliament, but that seat became vacant. And what is also interesting, Mr. Barr himself had competed in the federal by-election, but there were 5 seats being chosen. He did not make the list. But then here comes a by-election, and he was he competed. Not only did he not get a seat in the 58th Parliament, in the 56th Parliament, he tried and he didn't get the by-election. He had won a seat in St. George in 1951, lost in 1956 when he and Adams fell out, and Adams was still at his prime then before he went off to the federal Parliament. So Mr. Barr lost his seat, but came back in 58, won the by-election in St. John, and never looked back. Another early by-election would have been of note would have been the St. Philip North by-election in February 1976. That was occasioned by the bankruptcy of Mr. Neville Maxwell. He was the Speaker of the House. He was found guilty of defamation and had time to pay, did not pay. And then the government of there was stalling and stalling. Sometimes the House would not meet for weeks because they were trying to give him as much time to stretch it out as long as possible before you call it by-election. Finally, they ran out of time, and they were forced to call that by-election in 1976. And that was won by David Simmons. And up to then, St. Philip North was a DLP stronghold. It was won by Mr. David Simmons. And then in May 1976, they had another by-election in the city that was won by Miss Billy Miller. So these two by-elections were being seen as a gauge of the popularity and the standing of the government because of the two by-elections coming in quick succession. And you have to see that in the context of, we just going 1974, where we had the oil crisis, goods were scarce, lots of things were put under price controls, and you couldn't get things with scarcity. There was a lot of confusion, a lot of dissatisfaction. In 1974, also, Mr. Barr had a big fall with almost the rest of society when he had made a series of proposed changes to the Constitution, and he incurred the wrath of the church, the judiciary, the teachers, Almost everybody. So all these issues were bubbling. I think I had to mud. I remember well because I remember writing that. I remember writing that the way things were going. I used to write a political column for the Advocate then, and I said that Mr. Barsh could and should not be returned because of the whole. I mean, you can imagine what happened to me after that. Oh Lord, talk about cursing. Because I dare say, because I was reading the C's, tea leaves are examine issues, and it was clear that there had been a massive shift into society over the election. Now in July 1978, there was one in. So Miss Billy Miller won the by-election in the city in '76. Was run in the general election. Then she became the first female minister in Barbados. So she had, and then she became deputy prime minister, etc., etc. So she could be considered being a notable figure coming out of a by-election in December in May 1986. No, sorry, there was one. Sorry, there was one in '78. St. Michael South Central in July 1978. It was one when Mr. Frederick Smith resigned retired as leader of the opposition for the DLP, and there was a by-election out of which came Dr. Richie Haynes. Now this is the same Dr. Richie Haynes who had failed to be elected when he ran in his hometown in St. George in the general election of '76, but he came back in '78, won the by-election. Went up by-election, went into the House, became a minister of finance eventually, and then he formed the NDP, and then ran and won the seat retained the seat in St. Michael South Central. But what was noticeable was that Mr. Frederick Smith had lost his seat in the '76 election, had won the seat, but only by 25 votes. And he felt that was not good enough for a man who had done so much for Barbados, who had been his first Attorney General after independence, who had been Minister of Education, etc. He felt that was unbecoming of him. And he retired. He retired at that stage. And then Miss Dr. Haynes, who was a young, handsome, dashing doctor, well-known Barbados scholar, right, who had been rejected by his own people in St. George, one seat easily in St. Michael South Central. One of the factors in that issue was that here was a doctor running for the DLP against a mortician, an undertaker, Mr. Chari himself. So the contrast was so people said, right, the woman is offered me someone who could save me, and then the one only bury me. So so those kind of interpretations of quite innocent. So had to fashion, help to fashion, help to make Dr. Haynes even more attractive than Mr. Haynes. And then came the 1984 July by-election in St. Peter, right? Which would come as by the retirement of Mr. Burton Hines, who's the great grandfather of Chad Blackman, who's now running in St. James North. And the BLP ran Mr. Owen Arthur, and the DLP ran Mrs. Sybil Leacock, right?
Yes.
Right. And that election was influenced by the floods, where people got their houses washed away, the houses damaged. And there was a lot of damage in St. Peter, right? Coincided with the by-election, virtually. And I remember Mr. Arthur appointed a minister of. Here comes the advantage of incumbency. He appointed Mr. Aaron Truss, the minister of flood relief, I think it was called. And his sole duty was to manage that whole process. And then the government had access to the old Haywoods Hotel was opening then, and those who didn't have anywhere to stay were housed in Haywoods because you're trying to make the electorate as comfortable as possible. But that election was lost by one vote Mr. Arthur. In fact, in other words, Mrs. Lee got one more vote than Mr. Arthur. And one more vote, and it showed you the importance of everybody voting, right? But Mr. Prime Minister Adams was not. There were lots of irregularity. Not irregular. There were some questionable decisions. There were disputes over votes, etc. Which votes were allowed in and which were prohibited. And Mr. Adams, who had described Mr. Owen Arthur as having one of the finest brains of the 20th century, right? And that's another story in itself. So he felt he could not let this quality person be lost to the electorate of Barbados. So he challenged it against some of more timid souls in the party. And he was convinced that he had a case. So he went to the court. The whole process was examined. The votes were examined. The votes that had been disputed were there. Because when after the election, the votes are stored for a number of years.
Yes.
So they were able to go and pick out the actual votes that were disputed. And the court ruled that they should be annulled. The election should be annulled. They had another by-election in November.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was run again, and that's when Mr. Arthur won much more handsomely. So, and then the after that in May 1985 was another by-election in St. Thomas caused by the death of Prime Minister Adams. Mr. David Simmons from St. Philip North, who had run the by-election in early 76 in St. Philip, won the general election in September 76, but came 1981, he lost in St. Philip North. So he was switched to St. Thomas in that by-election, and he won the election against Mr. Junior Rock. One of the issues of the DLP, one of the issues of that, and I'm going to give you an instance now where, or in the St. Philip North by-election, there people have you have to, like I was talking about things you have no control of. You can't control exactly what everybody says on the platform. You hope that they make sense or they're doing anything embarrassing. In St. Philip North, one of the speakers, there was a proposal for the BIP that have a college in St. Philip North, right? And one of the speakers on the DLP staff, I wouldn't embarrass him or his legacy by calling his name, but people would know. He said, "Who you gonna put in that village? Idiots."
Repeat what he said.
Are you gonna put village idiots in that college? No, the meeting was being held in Church Village, Christchurch, St. Philip. He spoke about village idiots, and people twisted that to say he's calling the people in Church Village idiots. And quite interestingly, this same character spoke in the by-election in the city thereafter, right? And they were talking about something, and then made a remark that people said they were calling people city monkeys. So yeah, but you have to react to these things because it changes the narrative. It becomes very personal. I remember in 1985 in the by-election at a meeting in St. Thomas at Bridgefield, Mr. Barr put a tongue lashing in the BLP supporters. It came out of the blue. He said you could always tell, I can remember almost word for it, you could always tell a BLP supporter, a BLP man, he's walked with an old policeman trousers with a tie wrap on your waist, 2 slips top on your feet, hair and comb, and that people felt that attack on the BLPites helped to sort turn off people. That made an easier passage for David Simmons against Julia Rock. That would have been a closer contest had that not been set up that stage, and that had to change the whole direction and tone and narrative of the by-election. Then there was one in 1996, in May 1996 in St. Michael Northwest, where Mr. Lawson Weeks, a long-established member of the DLP and a long-standing parliamentarian, a professional pharmacist, had retired. And the DLP ran Mark Williams, and the DLP ran Clyde Maskell. in 1996. Clyde Maskell won in that by-election. I think he was beaten again by Mr. Williams in the general election of 1999. But what is most striking of that by-election is it was not the debate as such. It was that I remember it was proposed by the now Prime Minister, and she was then Minister of Education. She insisted that you had to hold a concert for young people, music again. She pressed Prime Minister Arthur for days and days until finally he related. He said, "Okay, let's have the concert." And it was down, you know where Bar Ven is now on the highway? That was
Yes.
the site. That was the site of the thing. And the only thing, the most memorable and notable thing that came out of that thing was that there was a scuffle and a young man got stabbed to death.
Really?
Yeah, yes, that's right. And from then on, I'm yet to be convinced that music changed people's minds in voting. Not in that way, just for a concert. You might have a campaign song which can influence you, but just to have a concert for young people could make a difference. And that was reinforced when we had a concert too in 2013, before the last election, Mr. Arthur ran, was called, before it was officially launched. Miss Morley insisted again for there be a concert, there be a meeting before the launch, which is very unusual, called launch was supposed to be the first meeting.
Right.
But just targeted at young people and lots of entertainment at Hatter Hall. I remember the stage was facing the Sky Mall, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And to the left of the stage was a series of over 10 or 12 tents. And that tent was supposed to house, note carefully, the leaders of the gangs in St. Michael. All right? Those tents were supposed to be occupied.
Who designated that the tents were to hold the leaders of the gangs?
I remember, yeah, that was the decision by the person who organized the meeting, Miss Martin. I remember because she was the campaign in St. Michael, and St. Michael is key to the winner of the elect. If you lose St. Michael, you lose the rest of the country. So she had the responsibility, and she had a team, of St. Michael, which had 10, 11 seats, I think, right? And they were supposed to bring home St. Michael. Her argument was that this concert, I remember Mr. Art said I would only pay for it. I only agree to it if you have raised sponsorship for it. And she insisted she had, but I understand all the bills still haven't been paid for. Maybe no for that thing. But the point she had these. She was supposed to be in control of the gangs in St. Michael, right?
So she.
I remember this because she said, "I will have them under." She said, "I have them under control." I said, "But okay." I remember the question. You might think or know that you believe you have them under control. Can you keep them in control for the rest of the election? And she can answer. And as fate would have, we did not win St. Michael. We lost the election by 2 seats, by 14 to 16. So this catering to the gangs and people on the block had been a fascination for some people for a long time, but it did not work out there. So I say that just to give you a context of some of the intricacies that occur in by-elections. Again, that you can't always be sure of the outcome, and therefore you have to. It calls for careful management and organization because it's an intense activity in a short period of time with lots of money. If you have it, it's pumped in it, so it's a very high octane activity, and I think therefore, like I said earlier, the country, the opposition, if they should hold the government feet to the fire. To make sure that the issues are addressed in a full way. I'll tell you why. Because I've heard some of the things I've heard right from Mr. Packman. Even before the election was declared, I know for sure there was a meeting at El Airport where they decided they had to fix all the irritants and controversy in the constituency before you have the elections. So you clean up everything, you dress up everything, you find reasons to make people think of you positively. So that is the kind of wicket. And then again, there's also the access to all the patronage and the resource of government to follow through in the campaign. That happens to every government. It's available to every. I'm not picking it out. This happens to every government. The law allows that because of the advantage of the advantage of incumbency. They are able to use that. So, but by elections are a standard feature of Barbadian life. I think most of them, apart from the one in St. Michael Northwest in 1996, I can't really remember any violence. Sometimes get a scuffle, but it's
the year that you had when the person was stabbed. Which year was that?
1996. 1996. Yeah, May 1990.
But that was a general election, right?
No, sorry, that was December. No, December 1996. December 1996. Sorry, December 1996. Is when yeah.
Okay.
That was the one that was won by Clyde Masker, who yeah, and then he lost in 1991. Right. So and they can be very colorful, but the election go in because of the narrative and the speakers, the qualities. You can go in any direction. You get good speakers, you get good laugh, you get farcical things, but it can be a very interesting and rewarding exercise in the political atmosphere. But we usually have very quiet, well-run, decent, lack of violence by election, even though all the pressure and the thing is so intense. The Barbadian tradition in that regard remains that way. I hope we maintain it in St. James North. And I also hope that we have a very quiet atmosphere, that people be encouraged to want to leave their home, to travel long distances back and forth to meetings, and that they are not so haunted by crime that they're not willing to leave their houses.
Yeah, that's the thing, so just hoping that people will still be able to go to exercise their right, their voting right. But I mean, there's a lot of things I learned. So that 1996, there was somebody who was stabbed in that one. And then just to hear that how based on your account, how how she really, really loved to use music.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's always loved to use music. Hence the big event on Heroes Day and bringing in all these people.
It was as one who was in the cabinet for the original Heroes Day in 1998, and the now Prime Minister was then Minister of Education and Culture, so she was basically technically in charge of it. It had none of the semblance of this. Nobody in drafting, in organizing, in conceptualizing, it never was meant to become just another bank holiday for wine and waka and fact. It was never meant. I remember after a while, the problem is that nobody has sat down and constantly tried to work a program that will help to make these heroes part of the lives of Barbados. There was a time when you'd have the pictures up around the Treasury building, but that was so limited because the artists only give a limited exposure to protect their image, their rights to the image, etc. But there was music being played on the radios. Each of the heroes has a song composed and recorded for him. But the one that's not here, each one has one. But there's not that build-up. And you know how the Americans in their movies and shows, they make reference to persons as part of the dialogue to reinforce the history and the culture.
Correct, yeah.
We don't do that. And by now, I used to argue, which after I saw that we were becoming just another by just like El Barde, I felt that the country could be divided in sections, and the schools, we could each year you could produce a different, with the videos you have now, you should be able to do a video on each hero, all 11. So you can show it before Heroes Day. And people have a different appreciation for a person who had made such great sacrifices and done so much for Barbados. But that it has just degenerated, and and dissolve into bacchanalia. Fight. And this is pity. I think we should try to, if we try to pull it back, we might, some of the benefits of that might help to refashion the mind and thinking of young Barbadians, and they have some persons that can not just Vibes character and Beanie Man, they have alternatives, their own people that they can look at because of the quality of their work and contribution to Barbados.
That we're celebrating them. Well, I must say, I see Mrs. Strickland is back. And I must say that all I saw, I went and searched on the NCF page to see if they had any events, because I might have missed something. I might have been wrong. But they had nothing. All they had was a post. One post with the pictures of all the heroes. That's it. That was all that I saw. If there was another event, you could tell me, because I know I went through the page, I checked, there was nothing there that I saw. It seemed to me that they knew they could not have a conflicting event with the event in at Barclays. It had to be that one event, and the rest of us wasn't celebrating Heroes Day. There was nothing set out of the $18 million that the NCF had. 14 million just for the management, the regular and budget, and then they had 4 million for Carapesta. So I call it 18 million, and nothing was there for the people of Barbados to enjoy Heroes Day. Mr. Strickland is here a second, and I'm going to bring him in, and I'm going to remind everybody that this is now the time where you call in. So tonight we discussed so many different things. I spoke about the culture, music, crop over, and how it's degenerating into this state-sponsored porn, is what I call it, that is happening. And then we had Dr. TULL, who talked about us being body, soul, and spirit, and a lot of us not connecting to our spirit. And Mr. Strickland, as you know, NIS man, maternity benefit and unemployment benefit. And Mr. Murray spoke to us about the bylaws. So you can call in with any questions and any comments on any of that. Mr. Murray, you had a thought there.
I just say that the farce that was dished out to the public on the East Coast Road is an insult to the national heroes of Barbados. It really isn't. And like having been part of the original undertaking, when that was launched in 1998, and this is the 27th year for it, outside the government headquarters on Bay Street, it was a lofty uplift. It was a very memorable occasion. And rather than seeking to maintain that and build on and enhance it, there's no degenerating into just another farcical embarrassment, a national embarrassment. I'm not surprised. I saw some of the stuff you put up about those videos. You remember last time I spoke on the NCF? I said that it was, I had no ideas such things were going on, but from read the signs and listen to other story, I knew down there is ripe for a cleaning out, clean out the table. And when one sees that, what you're talking about, it really has, I think it strengthens my case. Now, they need a change of person, but most a change of thinking and culture and behavior and practices. I know the Prime Minister is a very thorough woman on these matters, and I would believe, I know that she would have to know about those kind of programs being. I know she would have to know about those kind of programs and take an agreement on a. So I don't think she could. And not only that, NCF falls under. And they're responsible of Dr. Shara Montreux, like who reports to her.
Yes.
So the chain of command will tell you that was not a mistake, or that was a well financed, where the public money is being spent in more thing. And then when you combine it with some of the songs you've heard, you remember that Bajan Bajan code?
Yes, the Bajan code that was released. Yeah, and that was supposed to be our hero's song. She was dancing on top of the statue that's there. I didn't even get to play that one. On Friday, we'll go into that a little bit. But I know that Mr. Strickland has a question that was sent to him, that was asked earlier in the program. So we are gonna go straight to that question now. Go ahead, Mr. Strickland, if you could just read the question, and
Okay.
it's in your WhatsApp. Yeah.
The question was asked. I don't have the exact wording, but this is in relation: why aren't men being paid the paternity grant rather than just having paternity leave?
Yes.
I would have to indicate you would have to ask the Prime Minister because they're the ones who indicated that it is only a paternity leave. But what I would say is that if you're going to the question would need to be answered. If you're going to pay a paternity grant, the maternity grant is something, I think, 1280. If you're going to grant the woman her maternity leave, so she's receiving 12 weeks or is going to 14 weeks of maternity leave, and then you're going to pay the man a paternity grant. The question is whether the National Insurance Fund is able to handle this additional expense. Because we have to be conscious of the fact that the National Insurance Fund, this is not the Treasury, this is the National Insurance Fund, and therefore, for any expense on the fund, there has to be a means of supporting it. Okay, and we know that the sustainability levy was just added an additional 0.15 for that purpose, and therefore, if you're going to grant a paternity grant to the father, then I don't know whether the fund is going to be able to handle it. I am not an actuary, I'm not an accountant, so but that's only my take on.
Right.
Yeah,
but let me ask you, there's another question for you. Are pensioners going to get the $300 too, Mr. Strickland?
Okay. When I came out of the show, I received about 4 different of the same posts whereby the $300 is going to be paid starting on the 14th of May. I would have sent a copy of it to you.
Yes,
and
1 week before the election.
Pensioners,
1 week before the election. Let's note that.
It was stated, Marcia, during the budget. I don't know whether the by-election, the dates for the by-election were known at that point. What I can say is that it was mentioned during the budget. It may be a coincidence, it may be deliberate. That question I can't answer. Sufficient that all pensioners, both contributory, non-contributory persons receiving the disability grant pension for those persons who were added early this year, for persons who are employed in both the public sector and in the private sector, because as that letter would have indicated, for those in the public sector, you'll be paid once it's in the general service, you'll be paid by the Treasury, National Insurance. If it is a statutory corporation, then they will make the payment. For those in the private sector, because National would have a list of those persons who would have paid contributions in 2024, either as employees or persons who are self-employed, they will also receive that $300. Now, I try to remember exactly what was stated, but based on what I remember being stated, that all other persons who do not fall under those categories, there will be locations set up where you can go and register, so that none of those individuals will need to go to be registered because there's a record at National Insurance or somewhere else whereby those persons are receiving a benefit. I think welfare also, those persons who are in receipt of welfare will be getting that, but there are those other persons who do not work, I think that their place will be set up for them to go and register, but none of those locations have been set up as yet. But they're going to start paying by the 14th of May, which will be 1 week before the by-election on the 21st.
Yeah, we're just stating it. Mr. Murray has a question, as a comment.
Yeah, Mr. Strickland, I appreciate your comment about the national. You try to make it seem as though national insurance is not a slush fund, but we all know it has already been used as that. The $1.3 billion that was taken out, and has weakened it. We've never had an update report on the health and the strength of the NIS to settle those issues. But apart from that, I remember during the campaign, NIS again, you said you're going to give this award to non-contributing pensioners. I had no idea that it would be at the expense of me, a pensioner. Remember, we were supposed to get in every January a yearly increment. Apparently, that the money which had come to us was used to pay for political purposes, to enhance and sweeten the government's itself in the eyes of non-contributing pensions. I mean, I'm glad that Barbadians got it, but it was done to our disadvantages. And prior to drawing a pension, I never drew a cent in national insurance. Now has this sick leave, and I was very offended that the Prime Minister, before linking the two, could dip into the fund like that for political purposes. I have no doubt the same thing will happen with the $300.
Mr. Murray, I believe that it cost me my position of returning officer for St. Lucie. I don't mix my words, because during the 2018 campaigning, I said to individuals that what was being proposed for the non-contributory pensioners was going to hit the National Insurance Fund very hard, because if you were going to give the non-contributory pensioners the kind of raise that you were going to give them, you were forced to give the contributory pensioners an increase also. And therefore, where we find ourselves in 2022 and so forth, it meant that not only the increase on the National Insurance Fund for political reasons, then you had the $1.36 billion that was written off. But I'm saying that if the paternity grant is given, that's another expense. I'm not saying that the others did not happen, and I very much concur with what you said. You want to say, because that is what put national insurance in the state that it is in. And therefore, because of the large increase that was given at that time, from 2006, when the pensioners were granted a yearly increase, that has not continued. And in 2025, pensioners did not receive an increase. Pensioners did not receive an increase, but this was a statutory increase for cost and allowance, which was part of pension reform way back in 2006. So that I do agree with what you said.
Yeah.
There was another question though question that I saw.
Just before you answer question, I know people are listening, busy listening, but remember, we created this time for you. All right. Okay. You used to say, "Oh, we are talking, and you don't get to ask any questions." This is your time, and so use the time to call us and ask your questions. Okay, go ahead. You have another question there that was sent to you.
But I was looking at the chat afterwards, and there was a question about a payment to babysitters. Yes. I can't remember that being mentioned in the budget at all. It could have been there and I missed it, but I don't. The question again: who would be responsible for making these payments? Whether a payment from the Treasury or because this $300 is, based on my knowledge, is not being paid from national insurance. This is going to be paid from the Treasury. Yes, they're going to be paid through the National Insurance Department in some cases. But just like when during COVID, there were the self-employed persons who could not qualify for unemployment, they were paid a grant during COVID. The self-employed persons were paid a grant. The money was dispersed through the National Insurance Department, but the monies really came from the Consolidated Fund, the Treasury. So that this 300, based on my knowledge, is not going to be coming from the National Insurance Fund, because, as I said, some is going to be paid through the Treasury, even though National Insurance is the person that the payments for Treasury pensions are paid through National Insurance Office, but it's actually going to be coming from the Consolidated Fund. The $300 that was given in the budget, that, based on my knowledge, is not an expense on the National Insurance Fund.
Yeah.
So the babysitting, that's something I would have heard either.
Mr. Strickland, do you recall how much this $300 grant is going to cost the taxpayers altogether? How many millions is involved? I don't remember. I don't remember hearing a figure.
Honestly, truth, I can't. I didn't pay much attention to it. The fact that it is not being paid for basically through national insurance, I did not pay a lot of attention to the cost. But obviously, this is an expense for the general elections. It's not just for the by-election. This is for the general election, and you can believe it that this $300 will surface during campaigning somewhere or the other when the general election day is called, because the general election is not that far off. Okay, so therefore, this is going to be is used to bribe Barbadians with their own money.
But if I may just go back to give my view on the paternity leave.
And can I either it's really quick, but we finally have a caller. So
go ahead, let the caller.
Yes, okay. Try to remember. I know you'll remember. Good night, caller. Welcome to the Marcia Week Show.
Sorry to stop Mr. Strickland in his stride. But what I want to ask, are we following Guyana's pattern? Because Guyana's $500, which paid out to the oil fund money in Guyana.
Yes.
So are we offering this $300 as a gift or what? Because remember, you have to be paying national insurance, and if you're not paying national insurance, you're not getting this money. So my question to Mr. Strickland, as he is not a worker now of the national insurance money, the national insurance. So the question I would like to pose to the government of Barbados, is this money coming out with taxpayers, or is it coming out the Treasury? Because nowadays I notice we are very heavily taxed. And all we're doing is just finding money. We're the most taxable people in the Caribbean. So my question would be to the government, who is this money coming from, or how are we going to account for this money? Because there's no proper accountability for our funds. All we're doing is getting taxes. So are they following the playbook of Guyana? Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller.
That issue came up in discussions whereby Guyana, they did. We are doing the same thing that Guyana did, and as I said, it's going to be paid. The funds are going to be paid out of the Consolidated Fund, which is out of the Treasury. Okay, yes, as I said, the payment will come from just like government pensioners are paid through national insurance, and which is creating a lot of headaches for persons thinking that their pension will automatically convert, but this money is going to be paid out of the Treasury based on my understanding.
I'd like to say that however many millions come out of the Treasury, which taxpayers' money, is going to come at the cost of not being able to do something for Barbadians. For example, when government spends money, is that they make choices, either this or that. They don't have unlimited amount of money.
Yeah.
So that is going to impact on things which more meaningful. Not that I would object to get the $300, saying that they owe me so much from the beginning, with that non-contributory grant. But the point is, I think that it is choice that we'll pay for it. A road will be fixed. You can't afford to pay the teachers who leave. There can't be something happening in order to accommodate this political move. And the question too of the paternity leave, I think it makes a nonsense of the giving the leave if there's already a stigma attached to Barbadian men. They don't like to support their children. If a person is coming on leave and they're not paid, would they be placed in even more precarious, I think, in support of a new child and the mother? I think, again, it's an ill-conceived government which was pandering to probably to the men or the women. I'm not sure which, but it has not been thought to find out where it comes from, who will pay it, how will we finance it. To give you, so it means I'll have to take vacation or sick leave, or how do I qualify for this paternity leave? What do I give up if I can't pay? To me, it's a farce.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Murray, for your comment on that. And I want Mr. Strickland to read. Victorious Lady has a question, and I think she's late to class because you dealt with this a while back, I think 3 weeks ago. But so hold that question there and see if you can give her a short answer. But we do have a caller on the line. Good night, caller. Welcome to the Marcia Week Show.
Yes, and good night to the entire panel and the lawyer opposition.
Thank you.
My query is to Mr. Strickland. If my memory serves me correctly, if something went wrong in a pregnancy, you had to be, I think, 7 months pregnant to receive your maternity benefit. Is that still the case? And what happens if it is before that 7-month period? And my other comment is has anybody been saying since the outcome of the Trinidad general elections? Have a wonderful night.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. Mr. Strickland, that's you.
Okay. To the first question, which was on the screen, there is the resilience levy, which would have started the increase. Sorry, which would have started from the 1st of April. And there are those persons who only found out about it when they found that their take-home pay was less. So that there's an increase of 0.15 increase. Now, that is for the employee who was already paying 0.1. For the employer who was not making a payment at all, they are now paying 0.25. While the deduction was on a salary to a maximum of $5,280, now it is on a salary on your gross salary, irrespective of that amount. It has thrown national insurance into a whole unfortunate state, because how to report for those persons over 5,280 is posing to be a headache for the National Insurance Department, because the National was not consulted on this move, and therefore the portal, National Insurance portal, is dumb, because they're trying now to deal with all these issues. It's also affecting the calculations from sickness and the calculations from maternity for self-employed persons. So a lot of things have been thrown into chaos in respect of from the budget. Okay, so that's as much as I will speak on the sustainability levy. The other question about maternity, I'm really heartened that the caller knew what she just asked. And the question is, because once the baby is 28 weeks or more, and it's a miscarriage or stillbirth, she can still qualify for the full 12 weeks of maternity benefits.
Okay.
Now, previously, all women giving birth were sent to Ward B3. And it was traumatic for those mothers who would have lost babies to be there in B3, where their midwives, to be hearing those babies crying. So that those women are placed on ward B4 and I think B8, so that when those women are discharged, there's not a midwife who is there to write the maternity, the confinement certificate. So she would either have to go back to the delivery ward where she's not going back up there, or a doctor. So that I had to try to work years ago with the hospital so that when she's leaving, she can get her confinement certificate if the baby is 28 weeks or more. But if it's under 28 weeks, then she would have to claim sickness benefit if she's unable to return to work. Now, there's some women who qualify for the maternity benefit, but have chosen not to take the time off because they want to get back into work. They can't handle being, on maternity leave before the baby. And for some of them, may make the decision to return to work. So, but what she would need to do is to notify the National Insurance Department that she has returned to work, so that the maternity benefit will stop at that point, where contributions would then continue to come in on her behalf. So that is, those are not the rare case. And let me say this at this present moment, Marcia. I remember I had a situation once where this gentleman came in, checking to see whether his girlfriend would have qualified for the maternity benefit. So that because the baby was more than 28 weeks, actually the baby, it was born when it was due to be born, but it was a miscarriage, a stillbirth, sorry. And I turned to him and I asked him, so how are you handling it? And he looked at me and he said, sir, you're the first person who asked me how I'm handling. Everybody want to know how she's handling. He said, but that was my baby that day too. So I'm saying that, there's the sympathy to whatever towards women, not recognizing that men go through a whole lot, at the birth of the baby. So that is part of the reason I believe that government decides, because there's been a push for years for maternity leave, not knowing that they will get maternity leave, but not paternity leave. There was a push for paternity leave for many years, not knowing that they will get paternity leave, but not get paternity benefit.
Right. No money with it at
Based
all.
on my knowledge, no money.
Oh my goodness. Somebody here said men don't get no consolation. And you know what? Then we figure, Mr. Moore, why, what's happening? We see our young men and all that pent up anger and the pent up emotions. I wonder.
But
it might be. But go ahead, Mr. Moore.
Yeah, I want to say, Mr. Strickland, that Marcia, that this whole thing is the grant, the maternity leave grant, the $300 grant, all these that we handle, is that it's very symptomatic of this government and the NIS. The NIS has gone through tremendous changes legally, etc. But we get no information. You hear announcement, you hear PR programs, you hear advertising, but there's no engagement with the public. Explain anything. This whole thing about this 0.5, this new measures coming to be, that has not been spelled out to people, and they never used to be very forthcoming from my experience in informing the public. People used to, I remember there was somebody in the marketing department who told me that she didn't even like answering the phone and talking to people, but she's head of marketing or senior marketing. So you had that culture of indifference, and it has gotten worse, I think, now that there's statutory board. And I have no real idea what is national insurance. The new board, I don't even know who's on the board. I think it might have a vague understanding who, I think Rod Adams is probably the chairman. But apart from,
Farley.
Farley is chairman. Yeah. But this is one most important institution that has been heavily damaged by government. You would think they'd be reassuring the public is getting better. No, they're operating on its own, and we don't know what it's doing until we find out. Maybe too late. I think, and it's symptom of the government. You had last night. You had a St. Joseph Ideas Forum in St. Joseph, where the Prime Minister is giving all this expansive information, but the other things in society where you can't get a peep out of her mouth, can't unpick her teeth, or anything. But you go up there, Lord at all. Although you understand, you have to submit the questions beforehand, the ideas beforehand, so they're well prepared. Those are things which should be spontaneous. Come and tell, let you get the. Now, if you get the air of suggestion, you prepare a reasonable response to it. I think it's another fight, but it's just a replacement now of the Parish Speaks. Same thing, only different words, but the same context, same result.
Mr.
No
Murray,
respect. Yeah, go ahead.
right. Two things. It hurts to that you were saying that the public is not informed about what is happening with the changes at National Insurance. The staff at National Insurance are not informed about the changes at National Insurance. The staff are not aware. The staff have to go based on what they hear. Yes, certain sections. If it relates to a particular section, they will get maybe email. But to the general staff, I can say that many of them do not know. It is really, and this was not when it became a board. This has been for a long while. You want to say I'm saying? So that it is awful. But it's interesting you raise the issue about the parish, the ideas forum.
Right.
We know that they had the Parish Speaks.
Right.
When the Parish Speaks were done, there were broadcasts on CBC. But not one of the ideas forums have been broadcast on CBC. In other words, you go and you give your ideas so that only those who are there know that the idea was given by X person.
Right.
They will take those ideas and they will be their ideas. Because I'm saying they started in St. Lucie and I attended the ideas forum. Okay? So that when I heard in the budget, in respect of the maternity grant, some person said, Mr. Strickland, they heard your suggestion. So for 19 years, I had been fighting for that. Okay? But in the budget, it was mentioned. It was mentioned in the budget.
Yeah.
But no one other than those who were in St. Lucie. So that they are seeking advice, ideas, and they're using them and taking credit for the ideas that they have.
For the ideas. We have a caller. Yeah. We have a caller. He had called before, but I think he had something else to say. Good night, caller. Go right ahead.
Yes. It hurts to see that a retired person from the National Insurance has to come inform Barbados of what's going on in Barbados. But I would like to ask Mr. Strickland if he had worked under the former director, Mr. Ian Carrington. Because I remember a couple of years ago, they had a meeting at the same Sir Erskine Lloyd Center, where Mr. Carrington, when bonds first was introducing the public of Barbados and the young people to bonds and shares, because he said the older people, there was not sufficient children being born. Mr. Ronald Jones got cursed for it. It wasn't the first time that the statement was made. And he said the older people were getting older. So therefore, there were not much funds coming into the national insurance. And he started to introduce this bonds and shares to us. And I said to him, we in Barbados were not accustomed to the shares and bonds. We were not taught that way. When we heard what people, the Trinidadians and them was taught this way. But from my information, I don't remember. I wish to know, is there any actual statement from the national insurance, because the workers are not being told anything. When you just hear about these changes, when you come to the budget, you make all these chairmen, and then we are hammered with tax or replaced with funds for the national insurance, when a lot of money was taken out for national insurance and hasn't been repaid. Some of the debt, some more money was taken out to pay debts and wipe off. But it hurts to see Mr. Strickland, which is a former worker, has to come and educate the public. Where are the people from the national insurance? The CEO of the national insurance now head Mr. Turner with all these changes. You know, because they were the former member who had run, and I think they was thrown into this position so that
friends and family
would be at the person. You know, when you change the board, because it was changed then to a board where some of the people didn't actually appreciate the board being run by the board. But I think it's a very hard job for Mr. Strickland, because all the questions are going to Mr. Strickland. These questions should be coming from the national insurance. This should be somebody that educating the public of Barbados.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Very important point there.
Two
Mr.
things
Murray was saying
quickly.
something.
Yeah, I want to say that
Right. Go ahead,
I
Mr.
might
Murray.
be, you may call me old-fashioned or whatever, but I do not. I have followed government St. Barbados closely since 1951, the right to vote. All right. That was a time when we had not many people to go to university or high school, but we had good company. It got better over time. But this is the first time ever, even those people who were less well educated, so to speak, they were full of ideas, suggestions, programs, policy. I do not say it's my responsibility as a citizen to give the government ideas or solutions. That is there. That's why we select them. That's why we voted for. That's why we pay them. I do not subscribe to this ideas forum. Come and poach people ideas and then lord it off of people. It is wrong. It is. If I had any self-esteem as a person, as a minister, I would feel bad. No, you gotta go and ask them for it. That is my role. You find it, you do yourself, you consult, you investigate, you get whatever. But you have to go asking people who are not generally are not experts in the field, can just use their basic intelligence. Otherwise, if whatever information they give you ideas, you should be embarrassed. Should not draw the money.
Mr. Strickland, you have a comment on that or
Okay.
anything else you see in the chat?
Two things. I can understand Mr. Murray's position based on the question that the statement that the gentleman made that I should not have to come to be doing what I'm doing. I don't think I wanted to go and give ideas either. But if that's what it takes for the public to benefit, I will do it. In other words, I'm here because unfortunately the office has not facilitated these kind of discussions, even though I have made many recommendations on how they can get this done, whether at BMAX, at ArguFest. There's so many occasions that National Insurance career showcase cases with the secondary schools thing, but a lot has not been done to facilitate learning. Now, in respect of the question about the grant, I think all that might have happened was that Mr. Carrington made a suggestion about grants and so forth, but at no point was this facilitated. Okay, because I'm not even certain if when you were saying that he made the statement was when he was director, or since he has become who he sits on the board as the I can't remember the name of the position, but he sits on the board at present. You want to say I'm saying, but there was never a grant that was given for those type of persons.
Yes. Well, guys, it's 9:57. Oh my lord. I just look at it, I'm like, what? 9:57, Mr. Murray. It was great having you here on a Wednesday. You're not normally here on a Wednesday, you do Sundays, but I thank you for because you didn't get to present at all on Sunday what you have prepared. So we're very grateful that you were able to join us tonight. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Murray.
One observation. As I watched those videos about the songs, I heard the comments about the vulgarity, the obscenity in the songs. It made me wonder, do we have a broadcasting authority still? I hear some songs, I hear some lyrics in some songs on air that I don't understand how they get out there. I mean, the standards of the Barbados Broadcasting Authority of Barbados. I think it's held by Dr. the Most Honorable Alison Leacock. But you don't hear again. Here's the irony of a broadcasting authority that has no voice. At least we don't hear it. It makes no comments. All these comments, there's no intervention. It doesn't give a report to the public. It doesn't show you that it's looking into it, it's investigating. So again, another one of these state issues that no longer feels obligated to engage with the public. It's
Well,
characteristic of the
I
whole
need to
government.
speak to you more about that off air to understand the role and so on. We'll talk because
Okay.
I have on Friday night, I have some of the artists there who they brought it to my attention. These are not even church people. They are just tired of it and think that the money could be better spent. They believe it's not creative, and that's their complaint, mainly, and that it's bad for the society. And when you hear the artists are complaining of the artists, it's gone bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's on Friday night. We're going to have them. It's going to be an exciting show on Friday night. Again, we've been having some amazing shows. But I think there was a last thing for you. Oh, they're on you tonight, Mr. Strickland. There's Wednesdays is yours. Listen, somebody wants to know, and you've done this many times, right? Who is getting the $300, and how do you get it?
Okay, the all pensioners, because they are registered with national insurance, whether it be contributor, non-contributor, and there is special needs grant for those persons who have autism and so forth. All the working population, all the working population, for those in central government, you'll be paid through the treasury. If you're part of a statutory corporation, you'll be paid through the statutory corporation, because you are paid your salaries. They're lodged on the bank. Those monies will be going to the bank. For those persons who are working in the private sector, you will receive yours either. You can either indicate your banking information, or you'll be paid a check. But as I said, based on my understanding, there were those who, all other persons, there should be some center set up for you to go and register, that you will also receive that 300. So that from where I say, it seems as if all Barbadian citizens who have been resident in Barbados for the last 12 months will be receiving this $300 grant. It starts on the
Wow.
14th of May. Payment starts on the 14th of May, 1 week before the before the by-election.
What, do you have any idea how many people? It might be interesting for how many people in St. James North will benefit from that. How many $300 will get going to St. James North for that? Maybe a lot was taken at the.
But it would mean that all persons eligible to vote will get, because all persons 18 years and over will be eligible. So they would have to fast track to get the others registered to pay by the 14th of May. But it means that all electorate in St. James North will be getting the $300.
There's a modern version of the soup kitchen by her grandfather in the city. There's a financial version of the soup kitchen in Queen's Park. It's true.
Okay. There were two things I wanted to raise before I go, and
just
one of
before
them.
you raise them, I have the last caller, and I missed him the last night, so by right I have to have him, because I've been missing him. Go ahead, caller.
Yes, good evening, Marcerise on the panelists. Blessings to y'all.
Blessings to you.
The question that I want to ask: if you didn't work for 3 years, the span, if you would be still entitled for this $300?
Based on my understanding, once you are a Barbadian citizen and you have been resident in Barbados for the last 12 months, because that was what was stated in the budget. Once you're a Barbadian citizen and you're a resident in Barbados for the last 12 months, bring your identification card to the center that will be set up to register. I do not know when you get there what other criteria might be in place, but based on my recollection of what was stated in the budget, there are those centers to be set up for those other persons to go and register.
Yes.
Well, okay, so basically, anybody still entitled once you work that 3 year, or even a little more that you was unemployed?
There was never anything indicated about 3 years. I'm saying to you that what was stated, if you're a Barbadian citizen, one, if you're a resident in Barbados, if you were living here for the last 12 months, then you bring your ID card and you go, whether you work or not.
Oh, okay, that's okay. I just want to find out that idea. But thank you
No
very much.
problem.
It's great that you give that update that what you can do.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you, caller. Thank you, caller, for calling. Thank you. I'm glad I got it tonight. Thank you so much.
All right.
Yes.
Mr. Roy Hall, and blessings to everyone.
God
Yes,
bless
please.
you. God bless you. Let me use the opportunity to say I forgot one of our people that's usually the first person to be on. You didn't greet me tonight, so Judy Jilt, welcome to the Marcia Week Show. Judy, I'm telling you, she is so faithful. Sometimes a whole hour before the show is there, she's on waiting. And Judy, we appreciate you and thank you for your support. Okay, wonderful. Glad to know you're feeling better. Good. All right, guys. So I think this is it. We are done for the night. And Mr. Strickland, if you never answer question, you answered questions tonight. And the number is still there for people to call 236-7000 if you need any more questions answered. Call 236-7000 and I will pass the information on to Mr. Strickland, and I know he's going to respond. Want to say to everybody and to the panelists, anybody, if you have a refrigerator that you might be changing out refrigerators and the other one is working but you want something else, listen, we know a family that needs it, okay? And so we are trying to get it done. We would love if somebody could call me and say, Marcia, I have a refrigerator in working conditions, so that we can bless somebody with that. If that's you, please, please, please. It's very difficult. They can't keep their food cool and the food spoil quickly. All right. And they have children. So if you can help out, thank you so very, very much. If you work with courts and you want to put in a special word, please do that. All right. And,
I just want to say that years ago, I used to call on Steve Marshall from courts, and he'd help you all the time. Never once said no. Steve Marshall, damaged, like he just once in the case, he never once said no. A gentleman. I don't know. I'm not sure what the president's partner is down there, but Mr. Marshall, I believe Mr. Strickland would have Steve Marshall.
I know we're gonna get this fridge for this lady. I just believe it's going to happen. And we've gotten fridges to people already, but we're going to get one more for this lady. Okay. Mr. Greenwich was saying, you see how they're listening? They're telling me you were saying something before the last caller, and I cut you off. So they said they would be glad if you can make that point, please.
Who me? Who me?
No, Mr. Strickland. They are listening.
Okay.
Okay. The comment I was going to make was in relation to the music video that just came out and so forth. It's unfortunate that our Prime Minister can be seen on stage with Little Rick and behaving in the manner whatever else, and therefore I think that persons that are going are just pushing the limit and so forth, and I think that we have to do something to come back from there. You want to say? I'm saying, I'm not saying that she's responsible for it, but I think that some of the behavior by some of the individuals in the public space, some of the other individuals, some of the younger generation are emulating and whatever else. And I think that they have to take a bit of responsibility or take responsibility for their actions because of the position that they hold. That's what I wanted to say.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Mr. Murray, I think you gave your final word already, right?
Except that we need to stop. We need to stop this slide of appealing to the lowest common denominator in people. That's exactly what we're nothing matters. Standards don't matter. Right now, just do it. Don't forget the Prime Minister. was on stage saying more things with the lyric. The song,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah,
so
the F word.
If she could do it too, so it gets low, and then the artist will do it because normalized. She'll do it in a more choral, so that you have to have standards.
Yes.
You have to get back. Standards come through the church, through family, through education, through everything. But to pretend there's no standards, that's what you get. Life is about stimulus and response, reward and punishment. If you stimulate people, you get something. If you don't, sometimes will come and fill the place and you don't get anything good out of it. But that is too simple.
Yes. Well, thank you all so very, very, very much. Somebody said, thank you, Mr. Strickland. Job well done. Thank you, Mr. Murray. Job well done. Thank you for that very inspirational segment by Dr. Tull. Okay. God bless you all.
Good night,
everybody.
Take care. Good night to you also.
All right.
Yes. And thank you to Dave. Thank you, Dave. Thank you so much. We can't forget Dave.
Whoa, la la la. Whoa, ho, 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 la 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 la. The Bible say in the last days, perilous times will come. Nations will war against nations, and kingdoms against kingdoms. So all the wars that are happening down in the Middle East, really ain't no surprise to me. They're fulfilling prophecy. So while you're getting distracted by the wars internationally, I focus in my attention on the wars here in this country. Disunity causing anarchy, so them ain't ready to lead no army. In this war, in this battle, since Ananias get raped, me a seal be fate. We no got to fight until 68. In this war, in this battle, shooting in the day, tried by in the night. The black skin in blacks is the greatest fight. In this war that we fighting, in this battle. So it may appear like I don't care nothing about Israel and Hamas, but I busy fighting war right here in Barbados. Cause we in a war, we in a war, we in a war. We in a war, we in a war, we in a war. Ha! Oh, 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 ay, 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 we in a war. Many dedicated soldiers willing to die for a cause, but just like lambs to the slaughter, we lose track of the lives lost. The billions of resources that could end poverty, spent developing nuclear weapons, tanks and artillery. Yes, it's so easy to look outward at all the war-torn countries and don't realize we own government, waste resources and money. No strategy from the 30, so we paying high consultancy fee. In this war, in this battle, costly overruns and failed projections because of the poor decisions. In this war, in this battle, tell me it's a lie, and me I ain't fly. 67 people down to Dubai. When there is a war, if it's a battle, so don't it may seem I'm heartless and mean, and don't play in Israel and Hamas, but I busy fighting wars. Cause we in a war, we in a war, we in a war. We in a war, we in a war, we in a war. Everywhere is war, war. We fighting a war, war. We nation at war, children at war, families at war. question why countries does go to war. We'd ask ourselves the question, what the hell are we fighting for? Cause one day war will be over. One day there will be peace. One day there'll be no more fighting. Shooting and bombing will cease. But right now that's not reality. So I'll keep fighting until Satan in rule in Barbados and could triumph over evil. I'm fighting to see nuclear family as the bedrock of society. In this war, in this battle, I will defend and I'll recommend the value and importance of men. In this war, in this battle, then I will attack and strongly combat the things that have been morals hijacked. In this war, in this battle, so please don't imply that I don't cry for families of Israel, Hamas, but I'm busy fighting war. Cause this war is not just natural, man, this war is spiritual. So you can't fight physically against opponents that you can't see. Satan is the enemy, fighting we, seeking to devour we and destroy humanity. We need the Lord Almighty fighting for we. We need the Lord Almighty, Lord Almighty, fighting for we, fighting for we, fighting for we. Cause we in a war, 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 we in a war. Thank you. You behaving as